let me go on Outlook, because they're on Outlook.
High school, mine's just gotten
That was the
too much
response.
time. I think it was 1/4 inch and then it went to 1/8 of an inch. Number 50 now.
On a good barber's house, like I was like, this is start. That's starting. My son yesterday, he's just freshly.
They're not sending it from my.
They're just making up
Really?
that, okay. Well, that's the second time that.
I'm just kidding. Jesus, Greg.
So I can block that, can I? Can I just?
I know. Not communicative. I know, Jesus.
He's got a bunch of stuff.
Not quite. Audio, they kept cutting. I think I've worked with him. And it seemed like it got better during executive.
Because we were getting closer.
Oh, okay. I think I. Mm-hmm.
And the. Forest Grove, that's where I first met him.
That's, yeah, we want to.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Seth.
I didn't.
Sorry. It's 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we will begin with our land acknowledgement statement. The Chinookan peoples, known as the Clackamas and Cascades, are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechakli was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these people included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. And we are honored to be guests upon these lands. I have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible. Open the floor for citizen comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone that would like to make comment? Thank you, Greg. So we'll close the floor then for citizen comment on non-agenda items. And we will have a presentation on Play East Recreation. Councilor Howard Rios Campos.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight I will be sharing on the Play East Annual Report. I will be sharing a small recap on summer, followed by these items, and then answering any questions you may have at the end. This last summer was a summer of many firsts. As we continue to adapt and follow OHA guidelines, health and safety was our #1 priority to ensure a safe return. With the direction of the Play East Board, we offered 7 camps and served nearly 100 participants. We also hosted our very first summer lunch program right here at the Donald Robertson Park. We handed over 1,000 meals to students and families in the area. We had our very first Play Ball double feature event in partnership with Friends of Baseball and coordinated a movie night at Fairview Elementary. With such a successful summer, the fall term did not disappoint. We were able to bring back our most popular class, piano, and offer it once again. Out of 10 classes we offered, 7 of them were maxed out. With OHA guidelines, the other had a few spots available. We had to reduce the number of participants we were able to intake for registration due to those OHA guidelines. In the fall, we served 127 participants. We were also able to bring back our drop-in soccer program, as well as our partnership with our local Sun schools, providing a free soccer program and serving nearly 60 students. As for the winter term, one of the biggest success was reestablishing our partnership with the Reynolds School District to allow us to use facilities to run indoor programming sports. This winter, we also have 5 out of our 8 programs maxed out, with the other ones not too far behind. This year will also be our first year offering a spring break camp. For the winter, we are projected to serve nearly 120 participants. We also continue to work with our Sun partners, adding additional classes to what we currently offer, and we are projected to serve nearly 80 students in those. This graph shows our registration participants over the last 2 years. We can see how the program was really affected by the pandemic at its peak and how it made us adapt. But the graph also tells a story of what staff has done to ensure a safe return, and the numbers tell a different story as we continue in this year. This graph shows our registration revenue. In Q1 of this current fiscal year, we exceeded all of last year's combined. This was due to our focus in summer camp offerings. We have, in each of the following quarters, we have had our best to date. This graph shows registration since the conception of the program. Again, we can see the big impact that COVID had on the program, but as you can tell, we are headed in the right direction. As for registration revenue, we're doing quite well with a huge focus on summer camps. That has given us a big boost, and we are currently 114% above last fiscal years. The goal for Play East has always been to be self-sustaining through registration revenue, partnership revenue, grants, contributions, and sponsorship, with the city of Fairview and Wood Village splitting the shared cost of personnel expense. So far, the program has been able to meet that goal. Currently, we have been able to cover 71% of program expenses through our program's revenue, excluding the contribution of both cities. Staff is very hopeful and will continue to meet, in continuing to meet that goal. We have not done our annual fundraiser, which is a big contribution of us meeting that goal. Play East has not only established itself as a recreation program, but has worked hard to also be a community resource. Over the last 2 years, we've participated in various of events. Through these events, we've been able to give out much needed PPE as well as over 3,500 recreational activities. One of the most impactful events that we have been a part of was the mobile mural project. This project was made possible through Metro's grant, placemaking grant, highlighting our Latinx community in both the cities of Fairview and Wood Village. As we continue to navigate and adapt to the pandemic, we continue to be hopeful for the future and what it holds for Play East. This summer, we're projected to be one of our biggest years so far, offering 12 camps, a free summer lunch program, and participating in many events. Staff is still committed to the core values and principle of having a program that includes cultural equity, community building, affordability, and sustainability. On behalf of the Play East Board, I want to say thank you for council support in the Play East program. And I will take any questions.
Start with Council President Nissen.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. On your counts, we're counting, when I see 97 kids in, let's say, this fall term, Play East had 7 out of 10 classes at max capacity with a total of 97. Are those all different kids or kids that are participating in more than one activity? How do you manage those? How do you manage that numbers?
So those numbers are based off registration. So they're not unique numbers. So they're just based off registration. So a parent could register for multiple classes and they're counted as registered participants.
Related to that, as I read your report, I was, first off, thanks for the report. And it looks like it's really going well. As you're watching this program grow, do you feel like you're reaching out and getting kids here? Do you feel like you're getting more and more families involved as we go along here, or some of the same nucleus just taking more greater level?
I see both. So I see those families that are returning, but I do see new families as new terms and new programs come available. I will see during the pandemic has really, I guess, hurt some of our families from not participating, as we weren't able to offer a lot of those free programmings and workshops we did in the past. But I do see that we are outreaching more families, newer families, but we still have a core that keep coming back, participate in the program.
And you know that from looking at addresses. I mean, you know if they're registering from Fairview, Rockdale, or
Yeah. We in the registration we do ask for some general information that provides demographics of where those participants are located at.
And your staffing with your growing numbers and you're anticipating for next year, are you comfortable that you got enough staffing, and are you having trouble finding staff to help support that program?
So currently, the way that Play East is operates is we contract out. So those programs that we offer, we usually contract a provider to provide those programming. Staff with Greg's help and the city manager from Fairview, Nolan, we're currently looking at our needs and looking at ways to address those needs, particularly in the summertime. And so
Yeah.
we are looking in expanding some temporary help that can help me better direct the program where it's needed, and they can help facilitate some of those programs themselves.
So and maybe I just missed this from previous presentations. The staff that helps, run the soccer camps. The piano, I know we contract out for that. None of them work for Play East. They're all,
Not directly, so they're independent contractors. So
Okay.
we have a contract with them, and so they're providing a service for a length of time.
okay.
And that's really what we've noticed has worked for our program. And we are exploring other options, but currently that's kind of the model we are moving forward with.
Okay, and that has probably been covered previously, but I wasn't aware of that, so. And I guess last thing, as the director of Play East and taking this thing from the beginning and now growing it and growing it and growing it, as I looked at it, I thought, I'm not putting you on the spot here, but what do you envision with this program in 3 years or 5 years? What do you think it could be?
I think we're still kind of, we kind of have a good base, and so we have somewhere to stand strong from. And so I see it continuing to be what it currently is, maybe in a slightly bigger scale, but still having the support from the community, local businesses and organizations. Continue kind of what we've created. And I think this is something very unique. No other agency kind of runs its program the way we run this program, having that partnership, having a dual city partnership.
I asked that question because I just followed up with some conversations with the SEI program in Portland that started in the 1980s. That program started out very small. That program is now critical to some of the underserved kids in Portland. And it's critical in terms of giving kids opportunities that wouldn't ever otherwise have opportunities. And it's grown into really a primary, I would call it, a program that is nationally known at this point. So, I'm not setting up any kinds of false goals or anything like that, but I just think this program can continue to grow and serve a lot of kids.
I do think we are encouraging others to kind of pursue something different that they're currently doing or not doing. And so there's frequent conversations of, other partnerships that can help us grow, but have nothing really set in stone. And I think, how quickly the program has grown has been testimony of the support that both the cities have done to this program, and really the need of something this nature.
Thanks. And nice job.
Councilor Minor, I just comment. Great questions. Not only because they're great questions, but because it's very much what the board has spent a lot of their time in the last two meetings talking about as well. After beyond, that's one of the reasons that partnerships that will grow. Encourage you to do in presentation like this. slide that you had comparing participation from is that you compare that also to the year prior to COVID, because, you know, not only are we, sorry, I forgot to turn my mic on. There we go. Not only are we coming out of the pandemic in a big way, but it's also, you know, potentially the biggest year that the program's had, you know, and then certainly it's, you know, beating the first couple of years of the program as well. And so I think that when people have questions about the future, you know, it will be good to say, not only are we recovering from COVID, but we're setting records, and that will encourage them to believe that the program has a pretty solid future.
If I could just go back a few slides, this slide here kind of demonstrates that. And if we look at the third year, there's only 3 quarters there, and that's due to kind of when COVID hit. So in March of 2020, when we shut the program down, that year we were in pace to have break-even-setting years in participation. And so kind of looking from that to the following year when we were, you know, kind of slowly starting the program back up and seeing those numbers. And then looking at this year kind of again shows that I think the resilience of the program, and that we and kind of that that's partnership that we create, that relationship that we are here kind of to stay. And so hopefully that's what this slide here demonstrates as well.
You know, I gotta just say, because Mayor shared with me what the board is asking, and I certainly know if I was on the board, I'd be asking you to really think about it. Where you want to go, where you want to take it, and what do you need to get there? And let the board know that, because that's you can't do it all, and it's getting to a point. Don't be shy about asking for, this is what I need if we're going to get the program to this point, 600, 700, 800 kids. So this is growing to a point where, I mean, I do think that there's going to have to be some consideration for some help. And I know your board's supportive, so.
And staff were working on that. So with Greg's guidance and help, we are looking at our current situation, and seeing really where the need is for the program, and have currently identified that it is in the summer. And so we are working, you know, really stay within our kind of the means we have right now, but to provide that high quality program that we've always wanted to provide and continue to provide.
Thanks.
And then, of course, we have the sort of the dual presentation from you tonight, the staff report, and then also your slides. And the staff report talks a lot about the mobile murals and their unveiling at the grand opening of City Hall this past year. And is there a schedule, you know, as the events start, like with Easter egg hunt and things like that, to have those on the road and get them out there for people to see them again?
We're working on that. What we want, what we're currently working on is having a more stable base. So the base we currently have is not stable, and we kind of saw that during the grand opening as the wind was moving them around. And since they don't have such a high monetary value, but they have a lot of sentimental value. So we want to ensure that we can preserve these for a very long time. So I'm currently working with someone that can create a more stable base. And that's the hope, that we can parade them not only around the cities of Fairview and Wood Village, but also if other cities are interested in kind of showing them off, have something in place where they can, they would take full responsibility of it, but still can have that opportunity to show those off and at those. And again, highlighting our communities here in both the cities.
And then that staff report also points out the role that the natural leaders played in designing those. And, you know, for those who might be listening in tonight, I'd just say that prior to tonight's meeting, we presented the natural leaders with their 2021 Citizen of the Year plaques, in part for the work they played here, but certainly for the the COVID education and handing out all supplies and helping to keep people safe throughout the pandemic, and the work that they did with the census as well. And so we were happy to their plaques and some gift cards this evening. So just thank them again. And then also, I'm anxious to see those back out on the road. I just thank the artist again, marvelous job on those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor.
I had just one kind of thing to point out. If someone's just looking at this slide, particularly the registration numbers in that dip, it wasn't that the program was stagnant. It spun up into at first then doing Census 2020 outreach and work, and then into COVID safety outreach and engagement as well. So the program is very much relevant and in the front force of the community, keeping its name alive. And people were working on behalf of the program, doing great things in the community. So this slide doesn't show that picture, but that is what was occurring behind the scenes.
Yeah, a lot of work done in that 2020 year, wasn't participation in classes. Thank you very much for that. Councilor Rios Campos makes his way back to the dais. We'll introduce agenda item number 3, and this is our community engagement strategies discussion with James. James, before you get started, I just want to say I was commenting to M beforehand that the staff report on number 3 that you're just about to present, and then number 4, the economic development strategies, it's content rich and they're good looking presentations, and so we're anxious.
I only heard about half.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was complimenting you. I was saying I was talking with them beforehand, and that the presentations on both agenda item 3 and 4 that you'll be presenting in the staff report were content rich and really look good. So thank you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay. Here I am again. Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is one of 2 presentations, so I'll do my best to keep it concise but thorough possible. And this project is developing strategies for improving overview of the project. It's to enhance public engagement, or PE, efforts to have a well-informed community that feels valued and heard. Engagement that has robust communications, gain meaningful information to help guide policy direction and decisions. A strong groundwork was developed last year that produced a public engagement toolkit and also recommendations on how to move forward with engagement efforts with our community. To reinforce this groundwork, 3 recommendations were made. The first one was adopt a standard process for the toolkit, prioritize partnerships and community stakeholder alliances, and the city should adopt procedures rates the engagement practices. Excuse me. This year, I utilized the groundwork laid down before me and reviewed it to help institutionalize it by using the toolkit at the city events. And staff utilized its IAP2 engagement foundation during the development and applied research process to develop these. The leader in the field of public engagement is IAP2, which is International Association for Public Participation. The foundation that you see before you it's an engagement spectrum, and it's comprised of 5 blocks. And the summary of each block is as follows. Inform, which is a one-way communication coming from the city to the community. Consult seeks and receives public feedback to help inform analysis, alternatives, and decisions. The third one, Involve, works directly with the public and stakeholders throughout the engagement process. On the stakeholder side, it is making sure that they and the city are involved in the planning and engagement efforts. And the fourth one is Collaborate. This is about strengthening partnerships with stakeholders and the public. It is also about understanding, understanding is a very powerful part of this, understanding the barriers that exist and collectively moving forward during the planning and implementation process. This is a major process that leads to the empowerment block. According to the IAP2, this is the final place for decision-making and is placed in the hands of the public. It is very important to note, this is not changing the power dynamic of the city council or city or organization, but with robust engagement of all the other blocks building into the empowerment, it's increasing opportunity for the public to be able to run for city council, to participate in boards, commissions, getting their activity excited to engage back. We as a city do a great job of the information block, which you can see is with a green star. And we are improving and progressing in the consulting area. Since I've been here, we've, Em and I worked on a survey that is short, was meant to be short, but to gain meaningful data. And one of it was, what are the barriers of people not participating? Like, what time works best for you? I'm simplifying that question. So once again, that meaningful data is very, very important. Now, moving forward, taking these foundational blocks, we add the blocks of understanding and trust. This strengthens engagement strategies. Understanding the barriers, the needs, wants, dislikes, the general makeup of our community is extremely important to take strategies and implement them and move forward. The understanding allows for the spectrum to be continuously built upon in a circular pattern, which I'll show you later. So to recap, understanding, clear and meaningful understanding between the city and community leads to trust, and trust leads to robust understanding. Now, this is it's a wide angle. It's a big picture of what we're currently doing as a city. You see the blocks at the top. Those are strategic buckets, and what's attached to them are strategies, just to kind of give you a framework of where we're going. 5 engagement strategic buckets are communication, workshops, programs, events, and consult. A good example of the communication is the newsletter. It's very successful. It is one of the ways our community members receive information from the city. The website is very good. I have researched many cities' websites, and we have a clean, navigable, and user-friendly site. And finally, our social media presence is increasing. I believe last time I checked, it was almost like 3,000% increase. And I can get you the numbers later, but it was a large increase. I was very impressed. A side note on the social media, it's a one-way communication. It helps get the reliable information of services, events out to the community. Due to public retention laws and the need for constant monitoring, opening it up for dialogue and interaction is just not really realistic, but we can utilize it to further our information. Some strategies. I just talked about the newsletter. It is the primary source for the city. It gets sent out to businesses and residents. Everyone gets one. Every place gets one. It is translated. The flyers and targeted articles are translated into Spanish or Russian whenever need be, which is great. Moving on to, so I contacted a few community engagement coordinators in a few cities, and I thought it was a great idea. So I started building a database of just contacts. And it's always good to pick somebody's brain on what they're doing, what works, what doesn't work, and then we can formulate that to our city. But I think keeping that line of communication with other professionals, good way to go. Media outlets. An example is like the radio. It's an effective communication conduit. And I would suggest focusing on radio stations like Hispanic, Spanish-speaking radio, Russian. That way we can create like a press release. We can create a relationship with them and get our information out, especially for the people that can't read. Like we can't assume that everybody can read. So listening to the radio is and also social media reaches a diverse community. Younger families, individuals tend to use it more. So we can form that way, which we are doing. The second one is workshops. Some strategies to strengthen is understanding barriers to participation, which I briefly touched on. Why, what are they? What are the best times to hold the workshops? And is childcare needed? And will offering this service increase participation? Partnering with stakeholders like natural leaders, please, just to name a few, to develop a program that can provide these services and be beneficial. Moving on to incentives. Everyone loves incentives, food, gift cards, snacks. And if we can provide those little things during events and council meetings, we may see people. Leveraging the partner stakeholders programs and offering a space to host. So leveraging already established programs and organizations that they specialize in certain areas is very beneficial, low cost and effective for us. And if we can partner with them in a way of providing the support, providing a space, that would be great. Small idea, like offering a civic education workshop and partnering with Mountain Hood Community College. They have a Hispanic leadership program, but also we need to go back to those surveys and find out what exactly the community wants. Because there's no point of offering a workshop if nobody's going to show up, if it's not important to them. So that survey is very, very important. Another workshop strategy that I will touch on further in the next presentation is an entrepreneurial workshop. I had a really good conversation with the director of the Small Business Development Center at Mount Hood, Ibram, and they offer a training program that's web-based. So I'll go in that more in the next presentation. The third strategy bucket, programs, understanding the language barrier, Spanish, Russian, Slavic, any non-English speaking, we should always consider. And working with, for example, Hispanic nonprofit organization, Educate Ya, Latino Network. It is beneficial to the community because if it's being taught by Hispanic, then they tend to participate more they see eye to eye, that level of trust is there. So that will improve. So partnering with those programs is very important. Second strategy is focusing on youth programs. If the youth are involved, in my opinion, it will increase adult participation and again, break down misconceived barriers and build trust. There are a lot of cities in this area and around the state that hold If I Was Mayor contest. And I understand that we used to hold that. So it's beneficial. A lot of cities use it. It gets youth excited about local government and will reinforce our partnership with the Reynolds School District, which is an essential partner in our area. Programs that give the community opportunities to thrive, gain knowledge and experience will lead to better collaboration, understanding, and trust. Opportunities like the Summer Works PDX. This is a great program. So it helps like the local youth. It's a 10-week process, I believe, Greg. Yep, thank you. And it can take our vulnerable youth population and it gives them great work experience and something to build a resume, because they may not have a resume, but having that to build upon is great. So that's a great program. The events, I'll keep it pretty short. They're very, very successful. Planning and execution is great. Em does a great job. I've had the pleasure of volunteering a few times. And yeah, I mean, I would suggest adding more communications, surveys, because it's actually getting to and continue and expanding, leveraging community partners to attend.
James, do you have any ideas on how best to distribute those surveys at about the events? We don't want to have people in the middle of cotton candy or a hot dog and hand them a survey to fill out. Yet 20 minutes later when they go home, that's in the back of their mind, and trying to get them to take a few minutes out of their day to fill out a survey.
Right.
So we can garner that information. Where do we find that happy medium?
Well, so at the holiday food box, I unfortunately had COVID, but I worked on everything and took care of it. So we put it in the food box. My ideal was to actually hand it to, I would hand it to the person and say, hey, if you could fill this out, and there's an incentive, right? You don't have to say it's, just be like, you be entered into a drawing. Now, if it's like cotton candy, shaved ice, or popcorn in the park, I would probably set it aside and let the people, kind of come up to the booth versus handing it to them, because I agree with you. They're going to put it in their pocket and it's going to fall out.
Mm-hmm.
But through like the drive-through or something, you just let them know, approach them very personally, and just let them know, hey, you can have $35 gift card or something, but at our events, we have to get that word out. So if we can communicate with our volunteers to casually mention it, just keep mentioning it would be a great start, and see how that goes.
Okay, thank you.
And talking at a broader staff level, with drive-through events vis-a-vis, going back to in-person events, again, having it more at the city booth with highlighting the win a prize by taking a survey has seemed to be pretty effective. In addition, same kind of strategy with the drive-through, highlighting on the survey, win one of, 2 gift cards, or win this prize by taking the survey, has shown to be pretty effective. Also, the size of the survey, keeping it very small and targeted, where it takes a micro minute to do it. And as James was explaining, kind of the shaved ice or popcorn, kind of those little pop-up little events, that's how you get your shaved ice, your snow cone, your thing is take this 2-question survey and your whole group gets a whatever. So again, trying to induce it through incentives while still trying to capture meaningful, somewhat usable snapshot data.
Yeah, and a good example was, we had a vaccination clinic and, handed them out, but there was a packed house here and we got a lot of replies. I don't know how many replies we got, but
So to add that, we actually just closed the survey a couple days ago. We had a total of 83 responses. So it's actually a pretty big turnout compared to our previous surveys. And part of it was actually the incentives, was a reason also why people also wanted to fill this. And it's also short and easy to fill out.
Another quick suggestion, yeah, we did something with the, one of the Reynolds school districts. We did like a dot exercise. So I mean, it's very quick snapshot. You don't get information from the participants, but they can still share what, obviously what staff has provided for them. And that has, that works because it still gives you a good idea of the response, especially if you craft the questions to.
And
to have
we've
those
used that
responses.
strategy very successfully on some workshops. Again, kind of COVID prior, but what do you like? Green dot for what you like, red dot for what you don't like. And that's a very, again, simple exercise where everyone can kind of understand the framework, the outcome using pictures. But yeah, captive audience plus incentive equals good turnout.
Yeah.
Great question.
Teresa Rios Campos, because at the last vaccine event where 136 people got vaccinated, she was putting the survey in their hands and then coming back to collect it when they had. So it's, it's like James was saying, audience, pick a leader in that audience, but, pretty clear that we shouldn't pass up, any opportunity. A lot of people in front of us anyway.
One of the, and maybe James, you can comment on this too, but personalized, if there's 3 questions we want, maybe only 2. If you have the personnel and the staff, a person walking around and just talking to people in about a minute, anecdotal feedback on about 2 or 3 questions can be pretty powerful too. So the putting somebody in front of somebody, I think also increases the engagement and increases the connection to the, it looks real. It looks like people really do want to know what I'm thinking. So those are also options too, but again, it takes personnel.
And he'll talk about some strategies here, kind of similar to that in a couple more slides.
yeah, and to close that up, also to help increase responses, we designed the last one to be more accessible. So you didn't have to show up and actually hand us. You can go on the website and fill it out or email it. So we offered multiple ways to. Okay, let's see, moving on to the last bucket, consult. Important strategies are to recognize and be able to evolve with the diverse community and their diverse needs. This not only helps the understanding, but once again, builds trust. That's the common theme. Let's see, sorry. It's the small things that matter and build a bigger, better things. Offering coffee and donuts, conchas, hopefully I said that right, and at City Hall, and advertise it to bring people in and provide a little perk for people that come in and pay their water bill. It's a very small, fairly inexpensive way to engage. Also, when they do come in for the coffee donut, our staff members can ask them 1 or 2 questions and get feedback of what's going on. But exactly as Councilor Minor, just having that interaction with staff member will go. Offering shaved ice and popcorn here at the park is fun, low cost way to increase public engagement. The city can use this as an opportunity to invite stakeholders, partners to promote their brand and programs too. This will reinforce the collaboration and involvement. Okay, this I'm going to try to make it simple for you. This chart is designed to show the process of engagement and the relationship of the foundational blocks of engagement, the actions, and the results or outcomes of the implementation of those strategies. And we're going to go left to right. There are some open spaces, but this is by design because the engagement process is ongoing. And there's different strategies will require different actions. So this is meant to be built on. Let's start with inform. The strategy is building a relationship with media outlets like I spoke about earlier. The action is increasing accessibility and information frequency. With that action, the outcome is service providing, workshops, event information. And this is important because it creates a channel towards having that important dialogue to have sustainable engagement with the community. Proactively understanding barriers is a solid strategy. For example, understanding the barriers to appointed commissions and boards is essential. And I already touched this. Asking these questions like, what is preventing people from participating and wanting to participate? Are the requirements realistic, equitable, and inclusive? And how can we understand barriers while keeping a strong organization and government? So where do we meet in the middle to provide access to that community members? Empower Foundation block is currently held by City Council, and understanding having robust strategies that are in involve and collaborate blocks will not change the power dynamic, but it will increase the council's capacity to serve effectively. The Institute for Local Government outlined 3 government orientations towards public engagement. Understanding this is pretty important because those suggested strategies before, this is where we're going. The 3 are passive, active, and sustained. Passive is focused on minimal engagement efforts and no protocols for growth. I actually contacted a few cities, and that's the way they basically answered, was they have no engagement. I was like, okay. We are currently inactive as we are executing engagement efforts and have goals and expectations to advance public engagement. The last orientation, this is where we're moving to, this is where we want to be. It's sustained, rooted, it's called sustained, and it's rooted in sustainability. It reflects a deeper level of character and expectations of the decisions, direction, and dedication to public engagement and community relationships. In developing these strategies, I took this orientation in mind, where the toolkit is continually added to and progressively modified. And one of the most important is always communicate. Encourage involvement, consultation, and having the channel of communication open, and eventually having meaningful dialogue and participation is a path forward through these foundational blocks. If you look down at the bottom and look at the wheel, I thought the continuum wheel, that's what I call it, was a good way to visualize public engagement strategies in a sustained orientation. It's a cycle that must continue and always develop to support the solid core of trust. And just some rough numbers, back of the envelope figures, fiscal impact, about $1,000 for gift cards, incentives. That's at the events, answering surveys. About $5,000 for the small things. Coffee, snacks, shaved ice. That may seem a lot, but I was thinking bigger picture. We can actually support our partners and our stakeholders at their events, not just our own. And the goals that it meets, 1, 3, 6, and on 4 of them this time. Thank you. And any questions? Pass?
Start with,
I like
start with
it.
Council President Nissen, would you?
I had a
Questions
couple of
or
questions, but James took care of them before I could ask, so I'm good.
Councilor Meyer?
No, I don't have any clarifying questions, except maybe just conceptually. This document to me looks like it's designed to be fluid,
Absolutely.
and that it's going to be a living document. Okay.
Yeah, that's 100%. When myself and the staff collaborated on it, that's 100%. That's the
Okay.
design.
I don't have any questions about the document or the presentation. Thanks for the work on this.
Councilor Rios Campbell?
Just, I guess more of a comment in the workshop areas, you know, if we, in kind of those areas, if there were more, I don't like using the word targeted, but focused to a certain group, I think that can also bring in more participation. So, you know, weatherizing, I know Jamie and I had talked about like Civic 101, if those were done by, you know, in Spanish, you know, that could really draw in our Spanish speaking crowds. If we did some in Russian, that can draw in that crowd. So being intentional also in kind of those workshops that we are looking to offer, I think the hope is that that brings in those people.
Well, in a way, when talking about this, it's almost using not Play East to hold them, but the Play East model where the city works with a partner that already does something that the community says is desired. We feel it's a good opportunity to provide to the community. We partner, contract with that firm, help coordinate it, advertise it, provide the space, but we don't actually run the thing. And, you know, help get that culturally specific, educational specific, whatever the thing is. And that's kind of also the missing pieces. We have our ideas what we think will benefit the community or elevate, build that capital component. And we also need to know what the community desires and wants them to feel valuable to attend. And then what are the barriers if they find it desirable to attend and we hold it and we don't get the participation we anticipated, why didn't we? And then removing those barriers as well and understanding those barriers. So it's as explained, always evolving and always kind of trying to ground truth, setting it up and, you know, kind of put it bluntly, a post-mortem of what occurred, what was successful, what could be improved upon. And that's kind of what's being presented here tonight is here's these whole array of ideas, items that get to that better understanding our community and building that collective value of trust.
You know, we're coming into budget, Greg. So one of the questions I would have for you is, James mentioned, you know, some fiscal impacts, you know, back in the napkin math and gift cards, that sort of thing. But, you know, we probably have to figure in for food and childcare and things like that. Would you suggest that, you know, kind of under the community events banner that we also set aside a block of money this year that, you know, that's designed to be spent on that, and then, you know, whether or not we spend it, you know, remains to be seen, but, you know, set aside.
Yeah, I think either under community events or
75,
the
10.
council discretionary with, you know, that piece, but I saw Seth Tron's microphone, so. I'll let him.
I was gonna say John's the only person allowed to spend money. No, we can put together a package for you guys to consider as part of the council discretionary that comes at the end that kind of takes all of the ideas that come out of the retreat and catches a dollar figure, and then the budget committee can work through and kind of pick which ones are get the thumbs up versus.
And we can get a pretty good pulse on approximate costs, whether it's, okay, we think we'll need this many nights, or issues of childcare, translation, food, gift cards, because another idea is not just gift cards for surveys. If there's a desire to increase participation at public meetings, once a month, there's a drawing for who attended a council meeting. Again, spitballing ideas here, but we can certainly put together some financial packages for budget consideration.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, Councilor Rios Campos.
Oh, no, it was.
All right. And then, so I wasn't familiar with the IAP2 before, and so I went on their website, and I think it's interesting. They lead with a quote from James Baldwin. I can't believe what you say because I can't see what you do. or because I can see what you do. But, clearly people are saying one thing and not doing it. And so I think it's good that you pointed out, that we're kind of in the inactive stage, we're trying, so there's some motivation to be doing it. There is a If I Was Mayor contest already through the Oregon Mayors Association. I just sent the information out to the council and to you and to we hadn't taken part in it in the past because when we took part in it, we didn't get any submissions. So it's kind of my fault. I've sort of deleted those emails that I get from Debbie Higgins. But the contest is open until April 8th if we wanted to try for this year, and it's divided up between elementary, middle school, and high school, and what they need to submit is different for each age and grade level. And so that information is out to everyone in the email. And then I wanted to ask about empowerment. That's, we talked about the power balance and how it doesn't upset it, but how do we upset it? And how do we come from a position not so much of power, but sort of being welcoming and encouraging people to come before us, inviting them to come before us, but also taking away this sort of mystique that you have to be someone special to serve. Because I think all of us have learned that you can learn it as you go, and you can start pretty raw and get a lot better at it.
Well, and you don't need a degree, you don't have to have any educational background, right? And to build off of that, how you can help lower those barriers is something that I had in the slide, but I did not mention, was coffee with the mayor, coffee with the elected official, coffee with the sheriff, law enforcement. We can formulate it in a friendly manner, but just being on that same level, talking to the people that will, over time, it won't happen right away, I guarantee it, but over time, it will get people excited to at least inquire about participating and maybe running for council boards. And if we can have those barriers be equitable and lower before, so it allows people to participate right away.
Well, and kind of an example, shaved ice in a vacuum, other than a fun treat for staff, because, we're looking forward to shaved ice, doesn't necessarily do anything. Shaved ice with a purpose. Hey, council seats are open up. Here's some information. What questions do you have about running for council? We may not get anything the first year, the second year. And, but between those types of events, holding things at City Hall, having these intentional efforts, all of a sudden it demystifies, the institution of a city, while still, you call it elevating, protecting the status of the council, that you are the policymakers, you do set the direction. And what are the barriers that people feel that they can't be a part of that, or can't come to a public meeting to voice their concerns, or to express their gratitude for something? What's preventing people from doing that? Can be done through these, what could otherwise be seen as non-traditional means and methods.
Is it, so far, if you look at the presentations that have occurred tonight, there's a little bit of a theme developing, in so much as, Councilor Rios Campos entry in the staff report for Play East talked about how the communities that were behind helping with the mural design didn't feel heard, didn't feel like that they were invited to be in leadership roles. And, and now you're talking about sort of, demystifying this level, and talking about how you can serve, and of course we have a couple open spots, and the council, a couple of us at least, have done some recruiting, as we always do, but it'd be nice to be able to show a lot more people that it's open, and that they have the opportunity, and they have the opportunity to be recognized. They're asking for it, and to grab a piece of it, And then you mentioned on communication, that social media is not a two-way. And so I'm wondering what's an element that could go in that communications bucket besides survey necessarily, that is a two-way.
Well, so a two-way communication would be in the involved block, but to answer your question of communication, that would be that coffee with the mayor,
Okay. All right. Yep.
boots on the ground, so to speak.
All right, thank you. All right. And I think that, go ahead then and go on to our next agenda item, which is also with James, and this is the discussion of economic development strategies and the small business toolkit.
Okay.
Mayor, there was a motion on that.
Oh, I'm sorry,
But-
I apologize.
But you know, I have a question about that.
Okay.
My question is, why we need a motion on this? Because it's gonna be a document that'll continue to be revised and living and fluid. And Greg, I noticed there was a motion on both of these. And do
It's
we
really more,
formally?
do you accept the outcome, the report that was done? Does that meet your intent of what you were trying to do to get
Okay.
at? Okay, we've researched some engagement strategies, researched this, we have some steps forward. Do you as council more or less agree with that or accept that
Yeah.
as the methods moving forward? And that could be, doesn't need to be, do you give the council nod, the
yeah,
thumbs
we-
up?
It's a,
Thumbs up.
yeah, because I don't want to take motion on a document.
There's nothing
That's
necessarily
gonna
to
change.
adopt, it's more, yes, this
Yeah.
is good stuff, go forth and keep doing
And I
good.
certainly agree with
Yeah,
that.
no, and I think you're right too. I think that when we make decisions about how to do this document, new things we want to try, then we would, move them and get council approval. But I think you're right. A thumbs up here would be adequate. And thank you for pointing out that I had missed it.
And it'll be the same as this next piece, at the end, do you give the thumbs up of, yes, this is good works, go
Yeah.
forth and do good? Or make these changes, go forth and do good, or start over?
Yes.
The council then, thumbs up. Sorry, James.
Oh, sorry.
The only thing I'll just quickly mention is that as we transition out of COVID, it's also going to give us a different perspective, right? And I think
Oh, yeah.
due to COVID, there's things that are very limited, so that person-to-person interaction, obviously it isn't quite there just because of all the health guidelines. But I think as we move forward, the trend of city events have been growing and growing. We see the participation as, the second annual turkey drive. I mean, those, for being from a small city, I mean, we're reaching people from all over the state, and so I think it's going to be interesting to see as we continue to move out of COVID, how this tool is really put into place. So I just wanted to mention that because I think James has done good work in providing a good starting point, and as we move forward, adapting as the community needs present themselves.
And always move forward and develop. That's the main.
Thank you.
Oh, and I just want to apologize. I would have had the motion slide in there. I'm still learning what I need to put in, what I don't need. So, in this one, I got it. So,
It was in your staff report, though.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
At least we got it there. Okay. I'm here again to present a research-based economic development strategies that are available to the community members with a focus on increasing access to business resources for the BIPOC community who wish to pursue their entrepreneurial spirit. As the project progressed, the scope of work evolved from just focusing on the programs available at all three levels of government. And it shifted to compiling information and listing organizations, state and federal agencies and programs to create a resource-rich tool that is available to all of our residents. I touched on this last project. The city does a great job of getting information out. So since it's in our wheelhouse, why not take advantage of it? Let's compile these resources into a living document that understands the barriers for BIPOC community, that is easily accessible, fully translatable. So this will be translated into Spanish and Russian, I believe, would be the start. Yeah, so. And the point is basically is to create more opportunities and for businesses, for people that are moving here or they just want to start a business. So an overview, to help address the economic impacts for our BIPAC and disadvantaged community members, I researched best practices, strategies, local, state, and federal agencies and programs available to small businesses, business owners. And in particular, I weighted my research to explore what is available to increase that access for our BIPOC. It is important to provide as many resources to our community as a whole and understand the barriers that stunt and prevent this traditionally marginalized community. Economic development strategies that give opportunities at wealth building and access to resources like networking, technical assistance and training in the short run will lead to a more sustainable long run. So it's the goal of not just saying, hey, call these guys. It's actually helping them through the process and getting them connected to the right organization programs to have a sustainable business, not just to start it and fail. The major strategy moved forward was to gather resources that were equitable, effective, and accessible. This complex information is refined into, I mentioned earlier, a living document, and it is a small business toolkit. This was kind of inspired by the public engagement toolkit that I reviewed, and that was a great document. So it allows, and to complement the toolkit, there's a resource guide. And the resource guide is essentially meant to be condensed information only to organizations, programs, loans, grants, that is meant to change over time depending on what organizations are offering, what are the feds offering, stuff like that. So it's easily put in, taken out. It's designed to be easy use. The inventory of the toolkit, I reached out to another city's economic development coordinator to get a kind of pulse on their strategies. It was super helpful. He was a great guy. And also to get a framework of the toolkit. I saw the toolkit on quite a few websites, so that's kind of got my idea going. It provides business data in the form of community profile that includes important economic data points that someone that's looking to start a business would like to know. This economic tool is easy to read, streamlined guide to help someone understand the process of starting a business, and also a checklist to help someone ask the right questions and keep an internal record of things to do and things one person has done. This toolkit is designed with a little private sector customer service built in from my background. It is meant to be visually inviting, short, but full of information, meaningful information. That's also the key, that a person starting out would want, and it has a friendly tone to the user. I think that's really important in customer service, is being friendly. It's not intimidating at all. It's not meant to be. Let's look at the tools closer, the community profile. As I mentioned, it's economic data points for potential new business owners looking to relocate here. Economic indicators like medium household income, medium home value, projected growth is very important because somebody would probably want to know what's the community look like in 5 years, 10 years. The source of the data is provided by the US Census and HSM Pacific Retail Solutions, who conducted an economic study for the byway. So and also as the years progress, it'll be easily changed. So I also contacted and worked with the director at Mount Hood Small Business Development Center, Ibram, and he helped me refine the process of the chart, which I will show you. Also, I looked at the Oregon Secretary of State business guide as well. So it was a big, long document, and I wanted to condense the important points into this. So on this page is the flow chart that I worked with Ibram and staff on to basically make it visually inviting. They got the steps, it's easy, got some check marks, but the important thing is it brings up things that I wouldn't have thought of. I actually had, like seek professional advice, taxes and insurance. It talks about, or it lists some ideas of grants to look for, and it references the resource guide as well. I'm trying to make it nice and easy. The checklist, but also it's designed to help a person that has no idea where to start. It aids them by giving them a checklist to work down, shed some lights on things to expect, like a sign permit. Previously, I didn't know you had a sign permit, but if a person looking at this guide, they'll know to look for it, they'll know to get it. It references specific staff, like the office specialist, bilingual staff is available, and that they are happy to provide service to help them through the process. It is designed to be friendly, non-intimidating, and easy to translate. So when this gets institutionalized, staff members will have to know it or have it available to them. So if somebody calls, they can go right down the list with them. Moving on to the resource guide. This inventory includes compiled local resources and provided contact information, websites, phone numbers for nonprofits like PBDG, Professional Business Development Group, state, Business Oregon, Secretary of State, and federal, the US Small Business Administration. And that was actually, that's been around since 1953. Resource guide. There are many resources available provided by nonprofits in the area. For some examples, African-American, Hispanic, Indigenous peoples, Asian, women, veterans, state and federal are more, state and federal programs are more generalized to help people. But the big thing is, if somebody wants to go that route, they can contact someone, and then they have the resources to point that person to a state source, to a county source. Tools and services include education, network opportunities, business counseling, plan development, marketing, assistance like receiving funding, and important legal advice. And just a suggestion to have like an incentive program that I found a couple places. It's a license fee waiver program. And how does it work? Complete one of the approved training programs provided by a handful of nonprofits within 6 months before a person opens their business. So basically, if somebody wants to have their fee waived, they can attend a class or a program by one of these nonprofits. And I know of probably like 6, I believe. There may be more, but it's qualified for this city's. I'm just using that as an example. So they submit the business license application and a proof of training to the city. If already applied for a license and they haven't completed it, training program, and then they complete it, we can offer a refund or yeah, I mean, we could develop it, sorry, but this is a benefit to both city and small businesses. Other BIPOC focused programs are an emergency forgivable loan program for Native owned businesses, and a network to empower Asian Pacific Americans and small businesses. And also Mercy Corps offers a program that helps low income women. So there are, I think we're very lucky to be where we're at because there's a lot of organizations. There was a few organizations that I had originally, but I contacted and they only work on the west side. But they have plans of moving over. So with this being a livable document, we can add or subtract. It's gonna take personnel to contact those organizations to keep it up to date. I formulated some recommendations to keep economic development for the BIPOC and disadvantaged community moving forward. Number one, strong relationship and partnership with nonprofits. This is a common theme tonight. Having that relationship, alliance, checking in, involve, let's go back to communicate, involve and collaborate. Very important elements to keep these relationships. Have both licenses, the regular business license and home occupancy license, translated in Spanish and Russian. We don't currently have that. So it would be nice if somebody walks up, it's fully it's done for them. They don't have to have somebody translate it for them. Also, some common permits. I could put permits on there too, but I listed them. So there's tons of permits for the city. And after talking to Jonathan, he suggested doing the residential ones, translating those. Those are easier, those are quicker. Typically, it's gonna be a homeowner or a business person versus a commercial. So the building, electrical, plumbing, sign, and mechanical. Those would be a great place to start. Third is institutionalizing the toolkit like we are institutionalizing the public engagement toolkit. This will increase access equity and be a resource for the community. Institutional process would include, I've seen on website, they'll list business resources. So they didn't list that whole list, but we can continually update 4 or 5. We can decide on how many, but having that click access is a lot easier for somebody to download, or it's just more accessible to them. This one's really exciting. Have a link to available free webinars, training classes. So and that includes very strong relationship with our partners to offer that. But it's a great resource. And after talking with the director, Ibram, he has 2 programs right now. Very well. He was excited about them, and I got excited. So the first one is called the Endeavors program. It's free, so it's no barriers. Right now, I think the cohort's 15, but he would like more community members to access that free information. And what it is, it's basic business training. And the very cool thing about it is once you complete it, it's a 10-week program. Throughout that 10-week program, and at the end, you're assigned a counselor. So, or a mentor is what. So you're not just done at the 10 weeks. You'll have a mentor to contact and to help you through sustaining your business, and it's all for free. It's pretty nice. Right now, he said that the CARES Act is funding it for free, but their plan is trying to keep it low cost as possible.
The only thing I would say about that is that just say there's no cost barrier as opposed to no barriers. We know from our research how hard it might be for a lot of folks in our community to get onto a webinar because
That's true.
high-speed wireless connection or they don't have a device.
And also I was talking to Greg briefly, that's where we can step in and continue the engagement process. And if we can partner with them, have a scheduling process, they can come in here, use Wi-Fi, we can work that out. Might as well use the space. And and that will help lower that barrier. And the last one is spotlight a local business. I understand that we've done this before, haven't got much participation. But there's a few municipalities that did that, really nice pages. And I found myself reading the whole thing because I thought it was very engageful. It was really nice to see. So, and
What would you say to our doing something like that without really sort of telling them or involving them until we do it? Just, pick one and then try to get other people to say, hey, what about me? Just from word of mouth or
So,
seeing it or.
in the past, we did it in two means and methods. One was a comprehensive list on our website that organized all businesses in the city
Right.
by
You
their
mentioned that
category.
nobody responded
No, and then we
to
did
whether or
it
not they wanted to be on there.
another way in the newsletter, where it's essentially more or less a free half-page ad to tell us what you want the people to know about your business. And we like to target the smaller ones because larger ones certainly they're doing their advertising. The smaller ones seem to be, if you want to create something for me, I'll take a look at it.
That's kind of what I'm saying is that, maybe we ought to do that.
But we're not
and,
marketers. We
no,
don't
I
know
know.
what their specials are,
I
what their
know.
operations are, what their specifics are. We need at least something.
Yeah, we
from
would
them.
definitely need the data.
And we couldn't even get the
the
something
data
from
but,
more than two, I think, last time that we tried this.
yeah, from my understanding, the city that utilizes it, they do it to boost the business. I mean, obviously, but especially the BIPOC community. So there's a gentleman in Tiger that started, I think it was a coffee shop or something. And I was reading the profile. And I was like, oh man, this is amazing. So I think it'd be a great tool to use. In summary, this toolkit is, instead of just saying, hey, let's just list the federal website and be done with it, that this is actually somebody that can come in, if they don't have a printer, we can print it off for them. The resource guide, will be available, and we can hand it to them. So that increases access, but it's meant to be like if they come in and talking to someone, it's just meant to be open. So hopefully it will continue. It's developed that way, and it's a customer service friendly. Next steps, with council's approval, staff will work to publish a toolkit and resource guide on the city's website, translated Spanish and Russian, and also in the print. There's minimal costs. It would just be the cost of printing. City goals, hit 4 of them again, 1, 4, 6, and 8. Before the motion, does anybody have any questions?
Council President Nissen?
Nice job, James. I like it. I like the flow chart checklist, and the resources takes a lot of complexity and simplifies it down where somebody can, it takes somebody by the hand and walks them step by step through the process. I like that. One of the thoughts I had, looking at page 4 here, and just as an example, we have the, I'm assuming it's the permit prices for the sign types in the document. I would recommend taking those out, as well as anything else that, from my perspective, that might change. if we leave those in there, then annually, we've got to have staff go through all of these documents and make sure that we have the appropriate prices and or changes. Conversely, we've got some generic emails in here, building@woodvillage.gov. We don't have anybody's specific names. We don't have to change those, which I think is good. But keeping that simplifying that to make it easier on staff, that even as we change this, there's less room for error.
Excellent. Excellent.
Other than that, looks good.
Because we just had a comprehensive review and rewrite of the sign code. And those aren't the only sign types that are enabled now. Are they the only ones that have costs? I don't remember.
So signs affixed to a building because you, in multiple times, you need multiple permits for that. But like your A-frames, your feather banner, there's no permit or cost for those. But and the idea of removing the pricing is valid because maybe someone has a hand-me-down, business guide, and it could be 5 years old, and they come in and says, well, you said it was gonna be X. Well, that was 5 years ago pricing. So point well taken. Note that fees do apply, but let it be just open at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good term. Fees do apply. Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay, Councilor Minor?
You know what? I do have one question, James. Did you do all this formatting?
Yeah. Emma helped me
Well,
fine tune it for sure, but
nice job. I mean, it really reads. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. But it's a heck of a formatting job that you've done. And I like the idea, just what we've said. This is a piece, it's a packet. Somebody walks in the door. They start from square one. They're thinking about a business. You hand them that and it helps them get started. And it looks like we're here to help their business grow. So thanks. Nice job.
thanks. Yeah. I mean, I would like to tip my cap if I had one to Em because I've learned a lot designing that. She's very talented and
So you and Em,
yeah, with the formatting.
way to go, Em.
Take all the credit.
Well, that's nicely done anyway. Thanks. No other questions.
Yeah, you said short, visual, and impactful, and it certainly goes campus.
I would just like to reiterate on the formatting. I mean, it's very easy to read. I think the pictures just add that extra value and touch to it. And so it's very, like you mentioned, start from step one and just kind of check off lists where a lot of folks don't really, might not know where to start. And so this really helps doing that. I helped a small business in home occupation do one of these online, and it wasn't the easiest to navigate, I would say, but I mean, I really like the approach of simplifying things, keeping what is needed and just remove. So that really, having it this way really helps out a lot. Another question is, you mentioned that with the organizations, as some move closer or some move further, kind of what does that look like on staff to having to update that as Newsom talked about removing like the costs and things like that. So how would that relate?
I'll help answer that one since, James is the fella. But much like our community resource guide, which was what this was based off of, it's something we'll have to review periodically, whether that's every 6 months, spot check once a year. And again, a quick spot check can help us make sure, does this place still exist? The ones that may start to grow and expand in an area, we may catch on shortly after they move. It may not catch it. Oh, we now offer it into the, Multnomah County or East Side. We won't know that right away. And this kind of, again, spot checking, working with our partners like now at Community College. Hey, can you take a look at this, make sure they're all still relevant or good, or what did we miss? Utilizing that partnership to help us keep it updated and informed so it's still relevant and applicable.
That's great. And then kind of the other question, you mentioned of providing the space here, and for other organizations that offer classes and things. And so I think that'd be an awesome opportunity. Have that community engagement, because having the discussion we had last Thursday, that was a big topic that came up, was opportunities for small businesses. And I think this falls right in line with what the community is already.
And that's really working with that untapped resource of Mountain Community College. And if we can show the demand, maybe they don't hold the 10-week or 12-week course here at City Hall, but they can hold kind of an open house. What is it here? And get people here, because while Mount Hood's still relatively close, there are still barriers to getting to Mount Hood. If they can, hold something here that says, here's the value you're going to get out of this program, hold it here. People can make that value choice better, understanding what the program really is, what it is, and how it may benefit them. Again, leveraging those partnerships.
And hopefully leverage them to say, if we do have a great response.
And if
where
there's
they
really
can
big,
mobilize.
maybe do hold
Yeah.
something here if we can even show the further need and value.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, the SBDC, it's not just offered at Mount Hood. It's offered in PCC. There's a few places around the area. And the nice thing about having them as a partner is if we do have community members that are looking for something specific, we could point them into, because each one kind of they specialize in certain areas. Like Mount Hood is cybersecurity and PCC is like food retail, I believe. So if somebody's like looking for food, we can work with Mount Hood and have them pipeline to the PCC. So it's nice. It's a wider range. And after speaking with Ibram, he is very excited about starting a relationship. So I introduced him to Em and Greg. And he's like, I'm looking for a fruitful friendship. So I think it's amazing. So he's a really great guy.
Well, and one thing you mentioned about that program is that you get the mentor, and it's not only on how to start your business, but also to help sustain your business.
That's key.
It's sort of anecdotal, but in 2014, one of the guys that was running for Senate District 25, he said that Oregon does a great job of helping businesses get started, but the state kind of disappears around year 3 when they're kind of hitting a wall and need to figure out how to stay in business. And so it could be that when any business comes and renews their business license, if they're not a business that's been in town for 10 or 12 years, that we be handing out a link to this when they pay for their business license, so that they can look on and about getting that mentor that's going to help them to sustain. And then so short, visual, and impactful. So I don't want to cram it with a bunch of more stuff, but I think that maybe there are companion pieces that we might want to hand out. And one of those is the news on the zoning change, I think, on Halsey, particularly as it relates to micro retail. And Greg and I brought it up at the branding meeting back on the 17th, that we used to have the program, and remind me of the name of it again, where we would help people with their
It was a small business incentive
small
program.
business incentive program. And maybe we spin that back up again. So what that was we would help with permits on like tenant improvements or business license for people that were coming into I think it was 6,000 square foot space or smaller.
It's essentially the unoccupied
unoccupied,
existing
yeah.
retail space, yes.
And then have an incentive program to encourage them to want to develop businesses in that micro retail vein, along Halsey. And then I think that, when you go to WorkSource, because you're unemployed and you're looking for work, they tell you that now you're a Mount Hood student, because that's kind of a satellite program of Mount Hood. And when you take like the Excel class or the resume writing class, you fill out paperwork, you're actually signing up at Mount Hood, even though you take it at WorkSource. So, maybe we should, as we develop the front service areas, particularly, have the sign-up sheets for those programs. And, if we get to realize that vision that we had for a while of a computer kiosk, maybe your registration right there at the kiosk. And then so that, but definitely that, companion pieces should be that zoning code and that webinar, so that particularly you can focus on how to sustain. And then the only thing I think I might change about, yes, for a change about the document, and then let me get back. staff report is on page, the very first page, when we're talking about why, there really isn't much of a place where we focus on the fact that it's a BIPOC piece, and that a lot of the resources that you're going to see later are designed to help people of color start a business. And so I'm wondering if we don't want to take just a couple of those pieces of demographic information, you know, like 40% plus Latino, 6% Asian Pacific Islander, and maybe move that up into the Welcome to Wood Village area, you know, give people a little bit more of an idea as they start to read it, that it is, you know, a toolkit with a focus on BIPOC communities. And then, I don't know, maybe, I mean, maybe we have a drawing every year for, because I know that we have some people that have businesses in town that are behind on renewing their license, or at least we have had before.
Have had, I think
Yeah.
most are pretty
Okay.
more or less current.
Yeah, because I know we've had people behind on it before, because we've talked about it, you know, maybe, you know, we start a new business in 2022, or, you know, for all the renewals in there, but you know, to be, you know, drawn for a rebate of the, or if you're, if you're going to do, if you do tenant improvements, you know, drawn for a partial rebate on tenant improvements or something like that. Encourage them and bring them back. And then another resource guide that we might want to push out there at some point in time is, you know, once you've started your business, particularly for the BIPOC businesses or veteran businesses or women-owned businesses or disadvantaged businesses, is how you can increase your business by selling to the government. You know, now that I am the purchasing coordinator for Job Corps, I get 4 or 5 calls a week from small disadvantaged office supply distributors. And when I'm going out for contracting for roofs that need to be repaired or replaced, or heating systems, you know, I'm told that I don't have to, but I'm counseled to go and put these contracts in spots where those businesses can see them, or to direct solicit those businesses for response. And so maybe down the road, we drop a companion guide. Now you're in business. How do you grow it as a BIPOC owned business? And here.
Yeah, but yeah, and so keeping them connected, like networked, right? Yeah, that's.
Does the city currently do kind of like an email group of businesses that do services that the city might need?
Generally, I'd say generally not, mostly because while we have a lot of businesses, not a lot of them specialize in the services we need. When we did janitorial, that was a full RFP process. Otherwise, it's generally fairly specific in terms of construction, engineering, not a lot of the general personal services. So again, auditors, for example.
So not like a hairstylist or anything.
Yeah. And again, part of the idea with this guide that, you know, certainly anyone can use it, and it's how we market it and deploy it that helps, again, the BIPOC marginalized communities take advantage of it. So again, having it at Las Posadas, for example, in Spanish will help, you know, that community see it, whether they live in Wood Village, have a business in Wood Village, a lot of it's going to be applicable to a lot of different cities, or, you know, the agencies that are resources to help grow their business. So that's the other kind of magic piece. It's not just having it floating out there, how we strategically market it. And again, anyone can use it. And that's, you know, that's a good thing. And the spirit of this was trying to help our BIPOC disadvantaged communities, the original concept being there are loan or grant programs. And yes, there are, and there are a lot of hoops and a lot of steps to get to before then. And we thought, how can we build on the success of the other toolkit, to help people get to that stage? And that's how this was kind of born and implemented.
That, and also the ease of it will aid in the administration of it. So organizationally, it won't take very long to train staff on the basics, on how to use it, how to actually offer it to someone. it's a good skill, that salesman, that customer service skill, of handing it to them versus like, oh, here you go, you know, like, it's worthless if you can't explain what's in it. So anyways, it's meant to be easy.
And this is not at all criticism. It's just something that came to my mind when Greg said, you know, let it float out there, is that going forward, when we have presentations like this, in addition to saying what goals it satisfies, it also have some direction on how to initially deploy it. You know, because, you know, that's the new goal 8, right? Intentional. So include, you know, a list of steps that we can take to be intentional right away with this.
The first one, once we get if we get your sign off, your thumbs up, first step is translating it, kind of doing the few polishing pieces that are left and then translating it. That's a huge first step in making it accessible for a large part of our community. Then again, deploying it, whether it be as part of someone's coming in for an inquiry or at strategic targeted events, getting it just out into the face to start with, and then the website, additional links, and then targeting people to go there as well.
And not just BIPOC owned businesses, but it might want to be something that we take out to all of our, you know, are already sort of, you know, in business, because you never know what kind of struggles they're going to, and you might, we might, you know, just accidentally point them to a resource that they hadn't thought.
And that's something that we could certainly put on, like, again, the business license renewal, or just the new form is, hey, we have these resources, check it out. And we will generally probably never know where that leads somebody. Because of that action, we might have saved a business or grown a business. They're not going to call us and thank us generally.
No.
But something we can offer and do. That's,
Yeah, they might thank us by coming back again next year and give us for a business license again, because you know, they survived a time that they might not have otherwise.
Also, it was designed on a platform that's has a very low learning curve. I know Em knows it very well, but for any staff, it's Canva, so it's an online program. Very easy to learn, to change. So that was another aspect of using it. Anybody can learn it real quick. So,
You know, when we invited businesses to be on our website, did we do outreach? I mean, via, or what sources? I mean,
when
do we
we
have like email address?
when we
for 'em?
invited them to be on the website, we called, we stopped and we emailed them, and we got nothing back. We just did it ourselves. And generally, if we linked to their website, if they had one, if not, it was their phone number.
Okay, if you would just, if you have that list of emails still somewhere in a hidden spreadsheet, you know, if you would email that to me, doesn't have to be right away, but as soon as we have the guide ready for press, I'll go through, and whatever many there are, 300 of them or whatever,
Yeah.
I'll email them out a link to the guide.
Through our business license renewal program, we can actually get you the 2020 businesses. And so
Cool.
it wouldn't be the
Yeah.
list from several years ago. It'd be what we have for this year right now.
Yeah, I'll take that on. I'd like to, as soon as the guide's published, be able to email them. I could create a BCC email group of them, and that'll be the longest part.
And so again, this is a motion, but really is this the right, the right step?
I would say
Thank you,
as
James.
amended, and maybe that's what we talked about at the retreat, that our next fellow, one of the projects they might take on is the business sustaining piece. that
Potentially,
might go
yeah,
with it.
sustaining or crafting maybe a city-driven program, and we thought that was more fodder for APP type discussion time.
Through my research, I did see to add to that, like city programs, like Milwaukee had a food cart program, and it was on a one flyer. So yeah, it's great potential for that. So to work on that.
And then one thing I left out of James's last presentation is that one comment is that at the retreat, the information that Mike sent out to you, one of the are going to consider as a scientific study to buttress the quick surveys that done. And so, just be, thinking about that, and, if you feel like that's part of the intentional outreach, because our retreat is coming up.
I might still be in town for that.
March 5th.
Yeah, I'll crash it. Well,
Free fun.
thank you again.
Thank you.
Yep, and thank you, James. I know that you're coming to the end of your service, but you know, this presentation particularly, I think you did a good job at proving why hiring a fellow every year from Portland State is a good idea.
I appreciate it. I've learned so much. And not only from these two, but I ask a million questions and
Good, thank you.
Good.
All right, so next up, we have agenda item number 5, and this is a franchise fee discussion with Seth. You say it's with Jane? Seth, and then the first name to come up on your.
Emmeline's name up there.
Scroll back up. I saw it. Up to the top. You want to here.
Here we go. I see the Zoom meeting. The icon is malfunctioning. I just see a piece of paper there. Mayor and council, coming before you tonight, discussion item on something that was identified in the APP. No recommended motion. There's just a chance for discussion and guidance from the council on what the next steps might be. Highlights of what's in the staff report. Franchise fees paid by utilities in order to operate within our right of way and for the privilege of operating within. Currently, it's the third largest source of revenue in the general fund. For the private utilities, functions like a gross receipts tax or a sales tax. We take a look at how much revenue they actually get in, and they also a certain percentage of that revenue back in license fee. Council, part of council direction was to look at our neighboring jurisdictions to see where we're at in comparison. And so for East County cities. We'll note that these have been climbing higher recently. Gresham in 2012 started a process to increase electric and natural gas license and franchise fees. That actually led to some litigation, which was settled in 2016, which Gresham won, which we're a little surprised, but also heartened by. Gresham also made the decision around that time to start charging their water and sewer utilities. Part of that was they needed the money. Part of that was also that if you're going to be charging utilities for the use of right of ways, you should charge all of them, not just the privately owned ones. It also comes into play with not all what are considered municipal utilities are owned by cities. On the west side, they have Clean Water Services that does a lot of the sewer. They have Walton Valley Water District. Here in East County, we have the Rockwood PUD for doing water in Rockwood. And so making the distinct, it's hard to kind of distinguish between your government, other governments, private utilities. There are some governments in Oregon that also run their own electrical utility. So the idea was made at that time to charge all utilities that are using it privately owned. Most recently, Oregon City survey indicated that between 1/3 and 1/2 of cities charge their own city-owned utilities. That was primarily concentrated within the I-5 corridor. Or it's more rare to do that in rural communities, really typical urban areas.
What do you, early for a question,
But if you started charging your own utilities, so I mean, you know, our sewer continues to get better, but if you look at its health over the past, say, 5 or 6 years, how much worse off would it had been if we were charging it the 5%? And then how are your capital improvement projects potentially impacted? You know, if you're charging your water sewer 5%. And in our case, since water sewer is one bill, would it be 2 5% or 1 5%?
It would be both water and sewer would go up 5%, bill would go up 5%. To answer your question, something that I will note is, you know, we're talking about this in terms of sometimes our partners within the private utilities aren't necessarily good process driven and might be surprised by some of the partners, particularly ones that have been undergrounding electricity lines to have a big transmission line put down the middle of 238th. And so we looked at it at that time, and one of the things that came out of that was that ultimately any utility license fee or franchise fee ultimately is paid by the users. Utilities are very good at passing costs through, getting their margin, and some of that's regulated by the state, some of that's regulated. But ultimately, this would be passed on to electric, natural gas, water, and sewer. And so I want to be very clear about that companies aren't going to be we're not taking it out of the company's profits because they protect those.
But
Like
water,
we protect our citizen interests.
water and sewer, we know would have a direct impact on a Wood Village customer, but does PG have a way to disaggregate their Wood Village service and say you went up 5%, so every Wood Village citizen only is going to go up 5%?
Possible.
Yeah. They don't necessarily share how aggregatable and disaggregatable their user data. I know that Gresham did pass that. There's been a lot of litigation over whether or not companies are allowed to call out utility license or franchise fees as a tax on the user's bill. And the history on that is not they can actually do that. I think the Troutdale program that they did back in 2000, where they increased their franchise fees temporarily for a specific purpose, they did allow the company to call that out. But yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag on whether or not they call that out specifically on the bill.
I went paperless, but I think Comcast
Call it out.
currently does still call it out. Yeah.
Telecoms definitely call it out.
Yeah. And that's because there's a lot of that's a difference between whether or not it's a tax or it's a franchise fee, which is just the ability to use our right of way to put their transmissions line in and not pay for it.
You know, it brings up the question then, is it viable to call it a fee? I mean, because we know the difference, I suppose, between the fee and the tax is that the fee, well, in our city, doesn't require a vote of the citizens, but also has to be enough to get done what it's actually supposed to get done and not more. And so do we know what the actual cost of being in our right of way is? I mean, I'm not trying to defend them.
Oh, no.
But
That was a good point that was brought up when Gresham was doing this. Private utilities do not have to use the public right of way. They can always acquire easement and property and put the lines outside of right of way. Generally, that's cost prohibitive. Otherwise, they would do.
Go ahead.
go.
Well, you know, the way I look at this agenda item is that we're running out of money. And the long run here is that we're gonna need some additional revenue. Reading your staff report. And you presented some options that would help mitigate and begin to look at the future. So it's a substantial conversation about how we're going to, because that's what we talked about last year. is that how are we going to begin planning for the future when we know funds are decreasing and our public safety contracts are all increasing? We're gonna have to do something. So I appreciate you bringing this because it's gonna have to have a conversation about, it's just a place that we start planning
And-
cost increases.
You know, honestly, there aren't, so to respond to your question, Counselor, we don't need the money now. We
I
know
know
that
that.
we will need it in the,
So,
you know, inflation goes up 7%, our property tax revenues are capped at 3%. At some point, that doesn't work anymore. But we're fortunate in the position that we're not being reactive. That we are aware that that's out there. And so the real question is, how does council want to approach looking at those revenue sources and also paying, and really the revenue is only to maintain service delivery. So that's kind of the question is, you're either gonna, as we know, when you get down that road and you hit that point, you're gonna be in the position where you're gonna have to make the choice between revenue increase reductions, which is kind of where some of our neighboring cities find themselves. Right in the middle of that. We're fortunate that we can learn from their experience, and that also it's a conversation that can happen before we get to that point.
Did Gresham start charging their own utilities before or after they won the litigation?
I believe they started charging it when they raised the rates. The litigation took 4 or 5 years to actually work its way. Big one-time payoff because the utility companies collected that money and withheld it pending the judgment or the resolution of that case, sorry.
Collected at what rate? Did they automatically raise to their the rates to their ratepayers on the outside chance that they'd lose? Or did they collect just the same 5%?
I think that they tried to index them at the same time. I know that their most recent one went through, I think 2 years ago when they bumped it up all the way to 10%. They had kind of hit it in stages where it wasn't a 5% to 10% jump.
They kind of step it from when, if I recall, when I was a Gresham resident, it seemed it's not every year like we do it. It's kind of stepped and then they add on other fees and things. So today, is it hard to backtrack where exactly the rate lives? For the average consumer, it is because you have your rate and then the extra fees.
Jeff, this is potentially a dumb question, but if we were challenged, do we win on precedent or do we lose because we don't charge our own?
Well, first I have to say at the get-go that I'm very familiar with that case because represented PGE lost it at the Supreme. So I know the background of that case. There's no requirement, and I don't think there's any equal. Don't charge your own a differential rate. Has a lot of public comment. No, there's rational basis for that. I think the bigger issue is the tax. That the Gresham case pretty much say that a utility license fee actually a privilege tax. Three plaintiffs in that. And the issue was whether this and for PGE and Northwest Natural, they said no. Original statute, at least is what said that was actually an offer for home rule was developed more fully. And so for the private utilities, stand as a bar, which is a public or a governmental public utility. Because there's also tax unless you have a specific statute. And that same provision was interpreted towards the statutory office to charge up to 5%. The 7%, which is at the time was what so, you know, there's a whole bunch of complicated issues. I mean, Gresham was very extremely low on. So they were actually using that feeder. That's what turns it into a problem under our.
So, so if we wanted to raise it, then if we put it in the general fund, it would be a tax that it had to be approved by our voters.
The other potential strategy, and it was mentioned a couple years ago, is actually doing a qualifier on the charter amendment and what is meant by tax. Jeff, I think Jeff, you talked about this probably 3 or 4 years ago.
I mean, you know, I was here when that got started, and it was to stop the discussion about it.
Tax, yeah. I remember.
And nobody was even thinking about. Amusement device tax is a privilege tax.
Is our pot tax a privilege tax?
Well, that's authorized by statute.
I know, but to collect it, we still had to go out with the.
Right, but you had to
approval.
go out anyway for that.
Yeah.
So it didn't-
Okay.
the issue under our- But I mean, you know, we've talked a couple of times with. Got to see, go back out. In other words, limited to excise taxes.
Yeah.
I don't think the voters.
So do you, then do you go out in one election to change the charter and then in another election to raise the rates? So it doesn't look like you're just changing the charter so that you can raise the rates?
Well, you
Or
know,
do
the
you put
council
them both
can
on the
always
same ballot?
refer anything out at once. If they did change the charter so that still refer, I probably all the time, including other utility rates. So, you know, that's a double-edged sword you have to think about. I mean, I think I would be up. Say, you know, this station was designed. Decision, and if they've made a decision and then you decide to.
That's part of the reason for bringing this up now is if it's something you want to pursue, kind of need to pursue a couple other options first. And so then we can follow those tracks. Call it
Yeah.
a couple of years from now, you know, we're not in financial dire straits today. In 3 to 5 years from now, what do we have in place if we need to have additional tools is kind of, again, setting that stage now.
Well, I think that's what we do need to do is set the stage now. So we do, if we're going to, and I need a little history here. Seth, you mentioned in 2003, the city of Wood Village passed an ordinance. And there was, we're still at 0 in Troutdale, Fairview. And our neighbors, Gresham, have not raised, well, we have not raised our water, sewer, and street. Is that just because we didn't want to?
I think that my research indicated that pushback at the time. And so a successive council, so that was passed in 2003 and 2005. So council passed an ordinance, staff started working on implementing it. They paused it and they got another ordinance in 2005. Know if I'd say rescinding or revoking.
But because the council did not feel like putting additional burden on our
Yeah.
on
It
our
wasn't that they
residents.
couldn't do it, it's that they.
Yeah,
And that's the other piece for a long time, our utility rates were higher than our neighboring jurisdictions. They were based on solid business practices and principles why our rate was our rate. And we have seen in the last few years, several other cities around the region catching back up or exceeding our rate as we kind of call it invested early to build out, maintain our system. Other places are now playing that catch up where we're more mid-pack in terms of rates. Years ago, that wasn't the case. We already were called out as having excessive rates. So adding on to that wouldn't have helped that matter.
And it's,
But this council, not only have the other cities caught up to us, but this council's responded to people's complaints about the rate being excessive, and staff has gone out of their way and been masterful at keeping rate increases down, or, residents from having to pay as much of the increase as business, and so, we've been very, we understand that at the base rate and then charge for consumption after that, you can't do anything to save money on your water bill as a private consumer. You can't use less and pay less. You're gonna pay the base anyway. So I kind of think that, we then do the work of staff and what our residents have asked us to do if we were to start billing ourselves to be in the right of way.
And again, part of bringing up now is as we start the rate analysis, what kind of options or scenarios are baked into that for your all's consideration and looking at what the impacts are given the different scenarios that will be presented.
Right, that rate increase study that's going on is costing us 40 grand. We probably ought to see the results of it before we decide.
but we also want to know whether or not it's a question we should even post to the consultant to model a scenario where we would institute a franchise fee or utility license fee on our own utilities. And how does that compete against what the capital needs are and what the long-term operating costs are? And in terms of affordability, that's something that we could ask, because I think we put in 2 or 3 base scenarios for them to run. That's something we could ask them to do. And then you'd have that information and could be able to answer some of the more complicated questions
well,
after that.
Seth, I read this several times, but can you, in the paragraph in your staff report that I just cited, 2003, the city of Wood Village did pass, et cetera. And you go down and you say a possible solution to this issue.
Mhm.
Okay.
What-
I was kind of having trouble tracking where the dollars were going on that. Can you walk us through that?
Sure.
On that, what you're describing as a possible solution?
Sure. So in 2003, we didn't have our street utility fee. That hadn't been that utility fee had not been formulated yet. And so we implemented that in 2011,
12, yeah.
2012. And there was a concern that came up of, well, we're charging a street utility fee if we charge streets a franchise fee. That seems like we would be double hitting the street function. And so
It also seems silly to charge the right of way for being in the right of way.
yes, it does. And so that was the questions that there are some options that you could do to make sure that you're not double hitting streets if you move forward with that.
So what is that? I mean,
Yeah, but what I interpreted whenever the paragraph is that you would say we could raise the water and then decrease the street and stormwater utility fee so that it takes some burden out of the increase. But then how do we maintain our streets? Because the street and stormwater utility fee was specifically so streets could be maintained without ever having to borrow from the general fund again, because that's what they did in the past. And so, if we take money away from street and stormwater just to offset the increase in the water and sewer, then we can't give people a 77% payment index anymore, because we don't have the money.
Yeah, that is an issue if we,
Well,
if we, sorry. go ahead. No, if we were doing this to backfill general fund revenues, the option of reducing the street utility fee and sending some of that money back as a general fund contribution to streets would kind of defeat the purpose.
I say, this depends how it's all baked together, because you could then, again, give some of it back or make the statement that streets is already paying its fair share or better because of the fee itself. There's a couple ways to bake it. That was the point of that.
The other thing is that, you know, and the reason why we bring this up in terms of like looking at revenue sources comprehensively as a city, there's not a lot of, you know, we have our business income tax, we have property taxes, we have franchise fees. Traditionally, those are the three largest revenue sources in the general fund for every city, and there's not really a way to, and after that comes your state share. State share is formulaic, and then it really drops off in terms of general fund revenues. You have building revenues or specific purpose revenues, but if you're talking about trying to impact major or impact your revenues in a substantial way, you don't have a lot of places to go. And so a lot of cities have turned to doing this, and it's either through charging their own utilities a franchise or utility license fee, or forming, you know, public safety utility fee, basically general fund utility fees are attached to the utility bill.
Well, and the other thing that seems just a little bit disingenuous in my mind is that the money for water and sewer has to stay in water and sewer. And so, you know, if you say you're gonna, not getting this in my head right, but you know, you talked about the general fund and being able to have a little bit more money in the general fund. If it's not being charged by street and stormwater fee anymore, isn't that kind of just sort of a backhanded way of increasing your water and sewer rates, but not leaving the money in the enterprise fund, moving it to the general fund?
Yes. I mean, that's essentially, I mean, it's a way to get around, you're acting like you're two different entities where I'm charging you rent for the use of the space the city already owns. And that's a fee that you pay to the general fund. It's, you know, it is a way to essentially do a utility fee rather than charging it monthly on the bill. It's running it through your water rates. It gets you kind of the same place. It's just a kind of different mechanism.
And it's important when you're thinking about this. So a utility fee is charged based upon. So it's directly charged. That's why it's not a tax. And then you have the license fee. Right of way or doing business. Those are for raising general revenue. That's why they're a tax. So when you're thinking about the utility fee, distinction separate, and the problem with, you know, so we can reduce and then reimburse them with a general. I think that so I think it's, and you can do that. I mean, there's a lot of funds, but I think you say, no, we're charging the street fund dedicated to that. So if you reduce that, do it. There's no. I think you're starting understanding of what one is.
Well, and we only have 11 sources of income, right? And, and we're just talking about the top three, but and maybe that's because those are the ones we can actually influence. We don't have control over business income tax necessarily, or some of the others, but we can raise rates, and we're doing new master plans, and we could justify raising water and sewer rates based on the capital plan that we have and the fixes that we're going to have to make, or that we want to make to enhance service. So, and I think that's an easier story to tell if we do find ourselves in a spot where we have to start, raising rates because the cost of delivery is justifying it, and I think that, any water money that comes in for water and sewer should just stay in water. And seems like I'm asking a lot of questions, like maybe I'm playing devil's advocate. I really am in a position where I would like to see us out on the ballot, hoping that our citizens would provide a way for us to raise PG and Northwest Natural. I don't want to put increases in water and sewer into something that's so nebulous to people as what it means to be in the right of way. I think we take our new master plans and our rate review and look at what that evidence tells us, and let those be the reasons why we would raise water or sewer.
That makes sense. And Jeff is great in pointing out a lot of this conversation is about what you could do, not necessarily what the first best option for public policy is. And I will point out that Gresham only did this after they were unable to pass a local option levy for public safety. That was kind of the first best of, if you're really raising revenue to provide that for a certain service, go ahead and ask the voters for that as kind of your first step. That
And
levy
it
didn't
failed,
pass.
so they added a fee, and they make it plainly obvious that the fee was not enough to do the job, and so it's a question of whether or not they should have had the fee in the first place if it couldn't do the job. And then, despite raising their rights of way fees and charging that public safety fee, they also had a $13 million budget deficit going into last year. And so, I think they're a great example for being able to legally raise the rate, and it's good that they went through the expense of setting the precedent for the rest of us. But I don't know if we point to them as being economically successful in any way because they raised these rates.
Yeah.
Well, I would second the idea of getting scenarios. So we really have a target, and but is the likely scenarios to really
Yeah, okay. Well, that provides good direction for us, and we'll include that in the rate study. And then you'll be hearing the retreat on the 5-year forecast, and that'll be an opportunity to consider kind of all of the options and weigh them on their merits. This was just one that was called out specifically where we wanted some more information because again, cities don't have a lot of options. They have control over the ability things raise revenue outside of a local option levy. Property tax system hasn't been fixed yet. Business income for us is controlled by the county. State shared revenues are all formulaic. And a lot of the other fees, like building fees, are only reimbursable for cost of providing service. You can't raise additional revenue.
Well, yeah, and they're generate as boom or bust, and we we're running full speed ahead through our boom right now, it seems like, and so the bust is coming.
And another thing we can kind of keep in our back pocket for a time is, again, that question on the charter is excise tax versus just tax in general, and kind of if that's something you all are interested in pursuing. Again, another retreat topic, APP item, because I think we'd want to do a lot of outreach prior to putting something on the ballot, because that's when we can start, again, kind of free and clear education of how the system works here in Wood Village, and then putting something on the ballot. So if in the future, the council sitting at the table says, yes, we want to increase, franchise fees, that's potentially no longer a barrier, depending on how the voters vote on that.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And again, we're talking conceptually, how you raise money. And none of it's any fun when you have to raise money and you have to take it out of somebody else's pocket. So conceptually, if we're going to do a tax and we're going to go out to our citizens, we do need about at least a 9-month lead time on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
If we're going to ask our ratepayers, our citizens, for a tax, then we're going to need some time to start doing that outreach.
Yes, and potentially a why.
A lot of time. It can't happen 3 months before that. It's got to start a year ahead of time with lots and lots of information for people.
And it's cheaper to go on a mid-year. I mean, it's not expensive to get on the ballot, really, I don't know, but isn't it cheaper or even free to get on a May than to run in a November?
Yeah, if it's the May primary or any kind of November general, it's no cost to us. If you're doing like one of the special ones, we have to pay a proportionate cost of that.
Not every May and every November.
Okay.
And to say, we kind of missed the window. I mean, could technically we be on the November 22 ballot? Yes, technically. I think we missed the window to actually do it in a positive way.
Although,
Well, and we have had, our charter amendments in the past have been on the May ballots, and I've chastised people for not turning out, like the, charter amendment that changed your position to city manager had, about 260 votes out of 1,600 or so registered voters. But I think that I think that low turnout's probably a win for us. I mean, it was the same with the pot tax.
The marijuana tax,
was a
yep.
really low turnout. And maybe we just benefit from those 260 voters being, pretty smart people. There are at least the majority of them at any rate that voted yes in both instances. If we get a small turnout of a majority of smart people, I think we have a better chance of passage.
I appreciate bringing this because this conversation, we started having it last year. And it's never easy to think about that, our revenue is going this direction and our costs are going like this. But this is the time to start thinking about it and strategizing.
Well, I apologize, Seth, because with the questions, we started, blowing you up about 1 minute into the presentation to you. So do you feel like if there's any part of the staff report that you haven't delivered yet? Okay.
Report and more. This gives us good direction, and it gives me something to think about for kind of highlighting some things in the 5-year forecast for your retreat.
Well, and also just
a
sort
week
of
and a half.
tongue in cheek, apologize for, it's not very often that, accountants are allowed to be creative, and you tried and, but thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, again, it's one of those things, much like when we started the street utility fee, we did a whole year's worth of targeted outreach education efforts that we never had to take that to a vote. And when it came to, council adoption, there wasn't anyone opposed to it.
And
In terms of the charter piece, it would be a very similar type effort. Whether or not council exercises to use it is, future will tell.
and former manager Peterson and I got then Portland Commissioner Steve Novick to present it as a potential for Portland to pave their 58 miles of unpaved roads, and he turned out to be a one-termer, and that was a big part of the reason.
Hey, here's a good idea for you to do.
All right, so then we will move on then to a presentation from John, and this is Resolution 6-2022, Transportation System Plan Qualifier. And before John goes on, I just want to remind everybody that the Parks Board is not a legislative board. The Parks Commission is not a legislative board. They can make decisions, or they can make recommendations. They can't make decisions.
And we will touch exactly on that as
Good
John will
evening,
explain.
Mayor, City
John.
Councilors. You were presented with Resolution 6-2022, which is a transportation system plan qualifier. What is that? So during the December 8th Parks Commission meeting, there was a motion there was an approved motion to prohibit any public-private streets in the park. What is this? What were they referring to? So the Hawthorne project, with that trailhead there, we have a gate. The gate is locked, closed. Part of the project was possible connectivity to through Tree Hill via a pedestrian pathway. Back in 2015, during the parks master plan update, it was also discussed that there be connectivity from the Hawthorne dead end to Tree Hill, a vehicle connection.
It was discussed as far back as 2000.
That was based on the
11
2012
or
Transportation
10
System Plan.
Transportation System Plan, when bubbles were drawn around it, yeah.
Yes, so kind of going one phase first, kind of the pros and cons to this, just so you're presented with all the information. So during the 2015 Parks Master Plan update, Tree Hill folks were objected to any vehicle connectivity from Hawthorne to Tree Hill. So that's just some history there from Parks Commission. So the motion was they do not want any public or private street in Donald Robertson Park, specific to the terminus of Hawthorne to Tree Hill. Now discussing our transportation system plan, which was adopted in 2016, I believe. Yes. So the city's transportation system plan, which was, oh my gosh, a four-year.
It was multiple
Years
phases.
that this was discussed. It was actually
It was the first
adopted.
board I served on, but after the planning commission.
Right, it was adopted in 2016 by the council. It does call out a connection from the terminus of Hawthorne to Tree. So again, just want to give you all the information that you need. So again, recapping basically what I just said, the Parks Commission approved a motion prohibit any public or private streets in the park, specific to the dead end at Hawthorne through the end property of Tree Hill. During the 2015-2016 outreach to the Tree Hill HOA for the Parks Master Plan, they were not in favor of that connection. So,
Yeah.
If I could just add two quick little pieces, again, talking about that connection in the TSP, it is a bubble. What does that mean? It is not defined as defined. When John said connection, it's simply connection. It could be pedestrian, could be multimodal, could be vehicular, could be emergency. And the rationale behind that was in looking at the transportation plan, Tree Hill specifically, there's one in and out, one ingress egress. You couldn't build that today like that. And the original concept was, it was to loop around back to Hawthorne. I'll call it the collective we, thought, wow, we could, complete that and allow, a secondary ingress egress. And as John explained, Tree Hill, call it HOA representatives, those that represent Tree Hill, were staunchly opposed up to the fact that said, we will put a gate on our property line blocking the roadway.
I've lived there since 2005 and they never once had a well-attended meeting about it. And it was only the officers of the HOA board that ever responded to the city and say that all the Tree Hill residents would be against it would be wrong, because I lived there and I was the one that made the motion to figure out how much it would cost. And staff came back to us with, at that point in time, with about $220,000. And it was only when it made a staff report that they even thought about it or wanted to protest. And I mean, one of my questions that I never asked then, and I should have, is that, at Tree Hill, you have to pave our roads because they're private. Been able to do it out of reserves, but if we wanted to repave them all at the same time, we'd have to do special assessment. If it became a city street, if we built it out, would that section that's inside of Tree Hill that would run from the stub to 238th have to be brought up to code? And would the city then have to maintain?
In the concept designed, it was just going to be a roadway template on the city-owned property, still keeping Tree Hill as essentially a private drive, private parking area until entering then the street portion on city-owned property. And when we were told, again, didn't mean to make it that it was Tree Hill, residents, individuals said it versus, Tree Hill board. When they said we would put a gate on it, leadership at the time said it's not worth the $250,000 investment if those that can do something to stop it are just going to put a gate on it. Thus, abandoned the vehicular side of it and more went into what we saw with the trailhead, the nature play, the kind of increased pedestrian portion. But in terms of your question regarding would we have to make a roadway all the way through to 238th? No, we would not have to, and that was not the intent.
Okay. So again, being screens here. So again, the adopted 2016 transportation system plan calls out some needs, opportunities, constraints of the city's system.
Not everything, but
It
I can't-
specifically calls out this connection as new connection would reduce reliance on 238th Drive for vehicular traffic between two residential areas. Again, just providing you all the information so you make decisions. This is what Greg was talking about at the top of the screen there, outlined in the red. On the right side is the Hawthorne Trailhead. As you travel west, then you come to the Tree Hill property line. That is the area we are talking.
It only became multimodal to include cars in 2016, the first transportation plan where it had a bubble around it. And the board that I was on was only our active transportation.
Yeah, that's where I think, the original design was a bit earlier. And then because the TSP was phased in for a lot of different reasons as a way for other kind of projects to cook. So again, this concept was baking for a while as a bubble.
And we were bringing up the active transportation plan at that point in time because we were out of compliance.
Correct, with current
Somebody-
metro standards.
Yeah, okay.
Can I ask a question about, Mayor, you live in Tree Hill, so is that feeling still that with Tree Hill? And then also the neighbors on Hawthorne? What are those neighbors? What's their sense of that? Did the Park Commission have an opinion on that?
Well, since you're asking me, it was two of the Parks Board people that one lives on the Elm Stub and one's boyfriend lives on the Hawthorne Stub. And they are two of the loudest voices for why the gate that is on the parking lot
Okay.
will never get unlocked. You
So,
know,
like,
and so,
they'll-
so we spend money to develop that trailhead to be a parking area. And then eventually, if we can identify the funds, would like to do the nature play area. But in the meantime, it'd just be like building a road. Somebody put a gate there, only it was us. And we spent money on something that we can't use because the gate's in front of it. So, and since you're asking me, I suppose that if Tree Hill residents started to obey the fact that it's left or right in and right out only, and stopped driving out around the crosswalk and island to turn left to go up the hill, then they might sometime decide that they want another way in or out. But as long as they continue to break the rule and nobody stops them, then no, they probably wouldn't want another way in or out. But I see it, you know, almost every time I leave, if there's more than one car in front of me, somebody takes a wide turn out around the crosswalk and island to turn left to go up the hill. I'm not saying it's all Tree Hill residents. It might be people that are visiting Tree Hill residents. But you know, clearly they're breaking the law, and we ought to have a special patrol. And then they might decide differently about whether or not they want more than.
If we approve the recommendation here, the resolution, someplace on here I read that this does not prohibit future city council to approve changes.
Correct. So council 5 years from now could request staff to come up with a resolution to basically build the road there.
Jeff, can I go into a lot of current councils can't bind future councils? That's the basic premise. So again, this was a non-agenda item on Parks Commission, but we were doing Hawthorne Trailhead wrap up. And for the past 5-6 years, we have not been able to talk about Hawthorne without this roadway coming up, even though it's been made clear there are, since 2016ish, there have been no attempts or efforts at designing, building, constructing a roadway. That hasn't prevented then the topic from keeping to reappear. Parks then made a vote, said, fine, if you're not going to build it, prove it, pass a resolution that says there'll be no public roadways in the park.
And I think that'll be their feeling as long as I'm on council and live at Tree Hill. Because they know that I want a road there. So they may
Well-
not know that we can't bind future councils, but all they're actually looking to do is bind this council.
Well,
You don't have to bind this council. You could go back at your next meeting and undo.
yeah,
it.
well, there's a motion in front of us. I don't, right now, I'm not sure that I want a road there or we want to pursue a road there. But I'm not hearing from anybody else, but the Parks Commission has made a recommendation. I don't think I would want a road there if I lived on one of those two streets to create some drive through traffic. Now, Mayor, I'm not going to speak for Tree Hill at all, nor for you, but if I was living there, I don't think I'd want a road through there.
Well, and it's always worked me up a little bit, but Jeff, let me ask you, this probably has something to do in our charter and with the rules of order, but I know that if a motion is made and there's no second, there's no vote. But is there anything that says just because there's a motion in the staff report that I have to entertain one?
Well, no, I mean, if nobody makes a motion and nobody seconds it, then you don't have to entertain it. Now, if somebody does make a motion and there is a second, then you do have to entertain it.
Okay, well, I will reluctantly.
I would just state
entertain
that I was at the, Parks meeting and, I don't want to speak for the mayor either, but there were 2 community members concerned for it. And so since we haven't heard from anybody else, but basically 3 community members that live in proximity and we can say 2/3 is a high concern. And that's why this resolution is presented today. I mean, I think we have to also be careful as a council to shut out those that are standing up and saying something.
So there were other members at the Parks meeting, which I don't have any, I'm not privileged with that information, so, and they stood up and said what?
There was two that had concerns and there was a vote, and the majority voted in favor for it, so that's why it's presented here today. And I think collectively as a council, as we are here representing everybody, we need to just be cautious to dismiss something and not, I guess, be open-minded of what community members have came out and said of a concern or in favor of doing something as well.
And again, just for the members said they were supportive of no road or supportive of creating a road.
No road. That's
No
why-
road.
Yeah, that's why this,
That's why we're here.
yeah.
I got it,
It was a
okay.
majority vote, it wasn't unanimous, right?
There was a couple people abstained. I believe 2 abstained. The
Out of
rest
6
voted,
abstained.
and those who voted in favor.
The people that live there didn't abstain. That's another, I mean, of course, I'm not either, and so I can't really chastise.
No, one of the
board, but,
newer members and then another member abstained.
And Jairo, I would say that you're not wrong, except for one of the things that you have to remember about being on this side of the dais is that not everything is up for a vote or done by majority rule. And one of the reasons that I'm against this is because, like Greg pointed out, you couldn't build the neighborhood today with only one way in and out. And it's not safe with only one. And it's less safe now because of the changes to the only way in and out. Because of the people breaking the rule. And so you can't just cave to letting the majority of people do something stupid because doing something stupid is their opinion.
Well,
We have to have the courage to say, no, that's wrong, it's unsafe.
but even if
We're
we
not
build
gonna do it.
something, they've already said that they're gonna put something in place to stop it. So in retrospect, I mean, I
I'm
understand
not
what you're
even saying
saying.
that we're
I
gonna build a road
understand
there.
what
I'm
you're
saying
saying,
We're not gonna
but
let a non-legislative body tell me not to build a road there.
but I think we need to be cautious about that because, we're asking these individuals, as we as well volunteer for these things, to volunteer for a position and give their input as well. So
Well,
I'm just,
if they're volunteering solely so that they can make sure that something wrong is done, something that would be illegal today, something that would prevent the development from being built today, then they shouldn't be serving.
Well, is there,
They don't have the courage to do it right.
I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the, let's see, I'll make a motion here. I move to approve the resolution 6-2022 supporting the Parks Commission recommendation as stated. So there's a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Nay. Ayes a loss.
Good. So we're at the point where I'd like to see this brought back to us. If the Parks Commission can do what they want with it, or we can take it from here. And I would like to see us
What do you
If-
want?
Yeah, what information
want
do
from
you
staff?
need to
Yeah.
further a conversation?
Staff
yeah.
to
What do
move
we need from
forward?
staff?
Yeah.
Well, in my opinion, nothing. A tie is a loss. And to Councilor Minor's point, he's right. He should have the opportunity to bring it back. I would just remind him that he would have to have the support of another counselor to ever get it on an agenda.
Yeah. So, I'm satisfied with the vote at this point.
Report back to Parks.
One of them's
Mayor,
here.
counselors.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you. All right. And we'll keep John in the hot seat for the Public Works Director's report.
Hope your report's a little less controversial.
I always do that. I always move my mouse to try to make the presentation bigger so I can see it. I still haven't gotten over it.
Sure, yeah, okay. So good evening, Mayor, councilors. January Public Works Director's report. Good month. But I do have a couple items I would like to discuss, and that was, so ODOT has reached out to cities in Region 1. And so we applied for the small city allotment grant, about 24 months ago, something like that. And it goes through a process. You do your grant application, they review it. Folks on a panel vote on whether your middle gets approved or not. Well, Region 1 is looking for an advisory committee position. So we have an opportunity as a city to be a part of that board. And it council packet, the term is years. It can be a council member or a staff member. I just want to present it to you, see if you want to move forward with a small city allotment program advisory committee.
And having a spot on the committee doesn't preclude us from still having applications turned in.
Mhm.
And any of the cities can choose can fill it out, any that qualify 5,000 or less in Region 1 or 2. And just because we did the application doesn't mean that we've necessarily chosen as a representative.
As we saw last year, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
And the time commitment, meetings per year, eligible participants can be. Applications are due by.
So
Questions you may have?
what's the how many people are on this committee? As many as they want to take?
I
I
don't
didn't-
know if we
I didn't-
know how many, but I will say this is the first time I'm aware that we've been asked to participate on it.
Yeah, and it just kind of went through a little bit about the committee twice a year,
Yeah, I saw that.
your term. Yeah, there wasn't no information provided on how large the committee is. I can find that out for you.
Well, I'm thinking about this, just representing the city, but I suppose when it came time to a vote, I would have to recuse myself if we were voting on a grant that we had submitted.
Actually, you would not have to recuse yourself. Would not be a conflict of.
Yeah, because you're on the board making the decisions. So, well, and someday I want to ask you, not about home rule necessarily, but about of interest, because I saw, Gene England be on the ODF and W board for 2 terms. And before every meeting, say that, he owned a sporting goods business that specialized in sales to the commercial fleets. And so it could be perceived as a conflict, but it wasn't a conflict for him and he was going to vote anyway.
Well, there's the reason why it's not a conflict in the case of this committee is because the city is not a business with which you are.
I see. Okay.
So it sounds like in the mayor's situation, that would be a business with, and that would be a potential conflict of interest, could be to the king, rather than would be. And if it's only could be, then you have an obligation to disclose that, but you can still participate. So that's what it sounds like the person on the ODF doing, the benefit from some action that the ODF take, but it wasn't, a direct, like, if they were considering a contract with that business, then obviously you would have to. But that's the difference. It's, could it be versus is it? Best example I have was back when I was city attorney of Lake Oswego. The city redevelopment agency was considering buying a block downtown to redevelop it. It's now did it, and it's now nice. And one of the councilor's sons operated a business on the block, and obviously that would be displaced family member. It's business or a family member. Another counselor had a frame shop up the street, and she owned the building. And the whole concept of redevelopment downtown was to increase property, people coming in place. So she declared a potential conflict because if this project went through, it could increase the value. So that's the distinction. But if it's not a business at all, a governmental agency or a profit that doesn't benefit from revenue, then it's outside of the scope. That's the situation. That's a
Yeah.
very long-winded description of why, if you get on this committee
Yeah,
and a city project comes before the committee for approval, you could still vote on it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jeff.
yeah.
Right now, the committee has just one member from each of the 5 regions. And in Region 2, Chris Workman, the city manager of Philomath, his term ended on October the 31st. And because their city grew enough that they exceeded the population requirement. And so that may be why that position's open. And then Region 1 was Ken Gibson, the mayor of King City. And I know that in January, he resigned as mayor. And while his term isn't over yet, I suppose that there's a possibility he could have resigned this too. I've never talked to him about it. I didn't know until now that he was on it.
We are Region 1, so.
All right. Yeah, so there's just one member from each of the 5 regions.
Any participation?
You
Who wants to
talked,
stack the deck?
I'm kind of waiting for you to decide because you talked about it the most.
Yeah. Why, do you want to be on it?
Well, if you're not, yeah, I'm going to apply because I want to still be in government when the people that live on Island Parks Commission that are actually Wood Village voters and the folks at Tree Hill decide to vote me out of this.
Well, Mayor, I'll tell you what.
Plus, since it's not a conflict, I'm going to openly advocate for us if I,
Well, it's not a conflict, so
yeah.
we can do that, whoever is on there. This one had some interest for a couple of reasons. The funding and some overlap with Emuctuck. And I also like that they meet 3 times a year, twice a year, even better. So I'll go ahead and fill out my application and see if I can make the cut.
And just let us know what any kind of help or assistance you need with that. We'll be happy to help you with the
I
application.
don't want the disappointment and embarrassment of losing to Councilor
You want me to,
this way.
You would,
you want me to send that to you electronically?
I kind of like this one. Let's see here. John sent it to me electronically
Okay.
anyway, and I may call Deanna Edgar there and just get a little other,
Very responsive.
a couple more.
It's a good tandem
Questions?
thing for a muck truck too. I mean, you
Well,
you would be our transportation guy.
Well, that's why I started to look at it, is some of the overlap there. So anyway, Mayor, we'll see if we can get a Wood Village representative on there.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on, traffic analysis. We had 2 reports, one for Arata Road and one for Wood Village Boulevard. So just a quick snapshot here. So Wood Village Boulevard, you're getting about 4,700 movements. Traffic going south.
Almost as many as Halsey.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of movements. I was surprised when I saw that.
And that was after 238 reopened.
And then Arata Road had just over 2,600
Mhm.
movements a day. That's still quite a
half
few
as many as Halsey.
movements there. Average speeds on Wood Village Boulevard was just over 30. Average speeds on Arata Road was just under 30. But Arata Road had take your highest reading.
Mhm.
It was the highest reading, was Arata Road.
And it's the
So-
highest that has ever been recorded on that device.
What
Yeah.
I read this, I looked this one over pretty good. 83. Was it 83 miles?
83
Yeah.
miles an hour. That's,
And if you
That's
know
what-
where that was placed, they either accelerated exceptionally quickly, decelerated exceptionally quickly, or ran a light.
Yeah, yeah.
so, in our monthly meetings, why is this so relevant? In our monthly meetings with Multnomah County, we brought this information up. I shared it with them also. We're really concerned about that intersection of Arata Road and Wood Village Boulevard. Crying out loud, the new fence we put up has been hit twice now. We have recordings from a resident that is diligent with his
That one
recording.
recording alone is just amazing. And two people collide because they both run it.
So the county agreed to, one, they're gonna check all the signage, where they have all their pre-signage for four-way stop, and also discussed adding rumble strips. They're little raised pavement strips, warn drivers as they come up to the intersection. I think that's beside the speed, which was discussed with them, this intersection, just people blatantly running the intersection.
More run it than stop.
Yeah,
It seems that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, because in the ride along I did with Chief Hawk a lot of it was when he went up to approach, like, why'd you run the stop sign? A lot of it's called, road hypnosis, it didn't even register really that it was a stop sign. And so-
Well, I'm real hopeful that we can move forward with those rumble strips.
Yeah, they've ordered them.
Okay,
It's
good.
just,
it's a matter of supply, demand on
Yeah.
in shipping, but they agreed. The county transportation folks were very receptive to our concerns that we
Good.
have, not just providing them this report, but Pacala's information, their operation that the pedestrian
Yeah.
operation they
Well,
did.
that should speak volumes to some of the concerns we have here in Wood Village, all of us for our patrons and the residents that live there. That was, John, I appreciate it. I got my little, I went through it,
Yeah, no, I'm
it's-
sure you went through
Well,
fine tooth comb.
And you know what? Don't you hate data sometimes when
no.
it doesn't support what you want?
That's how I've provided you all the information.
It's the second time actually that a speed study hasn't supported what we thought people wanted.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
good. I appreciate that.
But still, the county is looking into that. Right now, was it a House bill? Or a ODOT?
I think it was a House bill that essentially in certain cases, much like Portland was able to do to kind of be their own speed regulatory body, allow that to occur in other locations. So then you don't need to necessarily go through the ODOT process to revise the speed. Because we don't know if, the entity would accept what we did as the official study. And there's always a concern, once you do one, what does the average speed say? And are they using the 50th percentile, 80th percentile, average? But there is potentially some legislative action that would allow the county to remove some steps in doing a speed study to get the speed on Wood or Arata Road to 30 miles an hour.
Right now, ODOT uses the 85th.
The 83 number, a lot of ways, it's, and one is that I drive a 1.68 4-cylinder and a Arata Road isn't long enough for me. So, but the other is that, the other thing that I wanted to know about the data, is it in Excel spreadsheets? So, I mean, obviously it's not here, but did it come to us that way? Because it would be interesting to be able to quickly compare
I don't think it I don't think it,
No.
PDF.
when you have the back of the program, you might be able to export to Excel. I don't
I
know
was
that.
just
So we
looking-
borrowed these from Troutdale.
I was
That
just looking for a way to
sort.
quickly sort times, because, you know, a lot of times, maybe speeders are outliers, but they could be people that live there.
Right.
And they tend to be on the road at the same time every day. You know, you go to work at 6 and come home at 2, or you go to work at 8 and come home at 5. And so if we could isolate a time, you know, that is consistently got one of the outliers, then, you know, we could run patrols then and
I
do
can,
a
I can
little
reach out,
speed education. And
I can reach out to Troutdale and see what platform.
I mean, I'm not saying that times do exist, but that was the first thing I started doing in my head was match 4 o'clock on 2-4 with 4 o'clock on 2-7. And was there, you know, a speeder at both times, and, you know, and, you know, maybe it's, you know, frequent flyers, so to speak. And
When, you know, reading the report, I'm sure Counselor Mina can attest, there's a speeder of note about every hour. And by speeder of note, you know, that's 5 or better over the speed limit, you know, doing something low 40s or above. It's about once an hour.
Yeah.
So we're working with the county.
I had a quick question. Where was the reader on the Wood Village Boulevard?
Right south of Riverview.
And I would want to see, would there be any difference? Obviously, there probably would be if it was a little higher or south, you know, past Fred Meyer's, as that intersection, not only that intersection, but the one kind of right before it, entering into the Fred Meyer towards the gas station or splitting
Right.
off into Lowe's. There's always seems to be, I guess, folks don't know what to do there. So they don't know if to get into the center lane to turn, to stay in that lane to turn. So I guess my question would be, you know, how could we use this to also have Multnomah County find a way to do better wayfinding down that road, as there's always issues?
Right, yeah, because you have site issues if you're heading northbound. Curvature of the
Yeah,
road.
because I mean, it starts out as a 2-lane and then quickly turns into one, which one forcing you to turn right, but that doesn't mean people always only turn
Within
right.
that turn lane that some people don't think is a turn
Exactly.
lane. I mean, we haven't talked fully budget wise, but we looked at the cost of these devices. So we borrowed these from City of Troutdale and want to thank them for their help and services. We've also looked at buying some for us so we can deploy them kind of wherever we need to.
Fine.
So, you know, an approach could be you put some up, you know, south part of Wood Village Boulevard, another set kind of north. Where does, you know, how much traffic entered versus how much traffic kept going, and then you could kind of presume the traffic movements.
Yeah, it's
And then especially
interesting
with the
how the-
development of potentially that lot right there in front of Lowe's coming in, I mean, the potential of congestion and just more confusion, you know, could really come about.
Yeah, there's some people that clearly aren't confused. If it was south of Riverwood, then they're coming onto Wood Village Boulevard by having to make a turning motion either out of a driveway or off of Gleason. And they're getting over the speed limit from only as far away from Gleason by going through that confusing area.
Thanks,
Other
John.
items of importance, so our groundskeeper, I saw, you probably read in the weekly, his last day was last Friday. And right now, we're working, Greg and I are working with Cultivate Initiative. They were the group that came in and met with the mayor. We're trying to put something together. That some of the groundskeeper duties and help those folks out too. Greg did a tour with them, providing us hourly rates and packages for spreading wood chips at the park and
Yeah, is it
Maintenance.
everything from pretty much right away maintenance to, you know, regular park maintenance and special projects. So right now we have some ballpark numbers that they wanted to refine a little bit, and we may gather again as we look at maybe using them for more regular park maintenance, what that looks like.
And also to the municipal water system, the water loss was 12+%. So we're watching that and we're monitoring and working with our SCADA specialist, trying to determine where the difference is.
But right now.
What's going on? Because-
Nothing we can point to say why it's over 10.
Yeah,
There's no obvious leaks, breaks, unregulated usage. There always tends to be, I call it the winter month, whereas it's December, January, kind of
or
a spike for some reason, and which makes us think it's kind of programming anomaly, but we are monitoring, we're constant, we will figure this one out, whether it's legitimate loss or some sort of error.
Yeah, I mean, guess I would lean towards programming error since, like you say, it happens every December, and you know, we have springs and things like that move around Wood Village, but I don't know that we have a water loss built into our system that only happens in December and no other
Right.
month.
exactly.
When we
So-
trend, call it somewhere around 5 or 6, and then you get, double that, and there's no obvious break, something's occurring.
So I just want you to wear that, we're aware of that, and keep that up front. So that is all I have. Any questions or comments?
Council President Nissen? Council
No,
Minor?
thanks, John.
Okay, so Counselor Minor, I'll send you the electronic
you.
version of.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right, so next up, thank you, Seth, for coming up already, is our Finance Director's report.
Revenues are coming in on point, as are expenses. A summary.
I'm sticking to it. Am I like-
From I was talked longer than I
No, it's,
anticipated,
yeah.
so.
Read your audience.
It's interesting though that
It seems like hotel and gas are recovering.
Yeah.
But business isn't, and that people aren't drinking and smoking enough.
People aren't what?
I was just thinking about COVID and the stress, and the drinking and smoking are down. And the travel that was the stressor, is clearly increasing because motel tax is coming up, but just interesting. I don't know if there's any patterns to be drawn, but
I'd have to go back and look, but I believe that OLCC did grab some special money last full session where they were gonna pull some money for
so the quarterly was just
to
less
update their
than
systems,
normal.
then that comes right off the top. So I
Okay.
think that might be what you're seeing with the liquor tax.
I think people are still drinking.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, no, I used to be signed up to where I got the quarterly disbursement. Go back and look at my subscriptions because I haven't seen it.
Seth, any glaring issues that you wanna, I mean, I went through it and I don't have any smart questions.
Nope. We will be bringing a supplemental budget, guys, as part of the proposed budget meeting. That's just to clean up some unexpected fatbergs and things of that nature that have popped up.
Opportunities we had.
Yes, opportunities that we have.
Good.
But no, everything's, if you look at the reports, we're gonna be coming in closer on our personnel services. We might actually in around 93-95% of budget, which that's been pushing up since I got here. It was very generously budgeted, like 85%.
Saying we pay you too much?
Yes, exactly.
No, we these this year.
Yeah, no, it's true. We were, every other month or so, we were at full employment until somebody quit again.
So, other than that, no, nothing's
Alright.
come up.
Well, I have no questions.
Questions? Thank you.
And next up is city manager's report.
I have about the same length of presentation as Seth, mostly because we have the retreat in about a week and a half that will go over the current APP, where we're at with that. So I didn't want to double that. And with that, are there any questions? I know there's some leg on a few items, but as you saw tonight, we're playing catch up as, put the APP together. We have some assumptions. There was delays in the completion of this one, getting the PSU fellow. So we're getting really good on target, not really concerned about any items under our direct control. But happy to answer questions about the APP.
No questions.
I'd just like to say good job on the benches out
I
there.
was gonna add, they're hooked up and installed. So as you leave tonight, take a gander over, they light up at
Oh,
night.
okay.
And so we talked today about signage, kind of translate type things you could put in there to message during the daytime and nighttime, whether it's park amenities, park expectations, about the Wi-Fi that now we know where the conduit is. We've got that going up again. So in the next few weeks, there should be a lot of good movement on a lot of projects. And just a reminder for DEI on Thursday, and if you haven't put in your food order, please do so. Otherwise, you'll get chips and granola bars.
I do have a question on the signage. Is it digital signage or is it kind of more just like your standard?
So it's not digital. So when you look at the systems, it's like a safety glass. I don't know. I think it's glass, not a
Yeah, it's
composite.
glass.
That we're gonna try using, I call it vellum. I'm confident it's not vellum. But there's kind of paper we have for our plotter that's a little thicker, glossier, kind of
Oh, where's
weather
the red
resistant
eyes?
that will print on that. And see how that works. We may have to go with an outsourced product at some point to get the lighting correct,
Okay.
just
Or
to,
like a poster, maybe.
Like
yeah.
vinyl type
No, it's
maybe?
good.
But yeah, some sort of other product. We're
Yeah.
gonna test it in-house
love the
first,
machine,
since we have the capacity.
Yeah.
And it's also something we want to be able to do, change it out regularly where it makes sense to kind of do updated, upcoming events or special bulletins or opportunities. So we like to think of it as a new messaging center, and it's gotten a lot of attention
Oh,
from
yeah.
the people. I mean, they're,
No, no.
say it was kind of funny at first when they were installed but not hooked up, because even though it was solar, you have to have an electrician plug it in. There's a lot of people playing with it at first. And the day I went out to put a not yet in service sign on, I didn't know the electrician came out and plugged them in, and staff decided to wait till I installed the
Yeah,
signs.
until you were out there.
So it's fun all around.
That's good thinking on their part. Yeah.
But yeah, they work. You could either, depending if your phone has the capability to just kind of set it on the
Oh,
wireless
okay.
piece to charge it, if you have that kind of style phone or compatible case, or you can plug it in through USB.
Yeah, we came by on Monday, checked them out. My daughter was more impressed than anything, so.
Questions for Greg?
Questions, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Jeff, do you have a city attorney's report?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone have a mayor or council comment or report?
Just, this last Thursday, having that branding exercise with kind of a full house, I think that was a good testimony to what the city is doing, especially in response of what they said corresponded with a lot of what James presented today in that community outreach tool research he did. So I thought it was pretty cool to kind of hear that, and then to hear kind of James talk about that same strategy moving forward. So I think we're kind of, the city's one step ahead of the game a little bit in fact. So it was really cool to see that.
Councilor Meyer?
No.
Either? Staff, anything else to add? We're adjourned.
Yeah. I was very disappointed to hear we're not having this at the retreat. Oh, okay. Oh, no, that's all right. That's all right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's all
If
right.
you don't like sandwiches, you can get
Oh,
something.
no,
Yeah, I know. They don't share
No,
that
no, that
information.
sounds good. I was joking. I just saw that. You were talking.
Hey, I'm sorry if I seemed like I was scolding.
The idea with yours. Topics, certain, you obviously live there, and so, I can't.
Well, no, and, I mean, that's probably one of the reasons I should have kept my mouth shut, but the, one thing I reflect on at Riverwood South, where there's 45 homes.
on our minute.
We were just the year before, the prior owner came to us and asked us if we would review the zoning to allow us 163 units of multifamily. And the council was no, and by a 3-2 vote. And they were no for all the same tired apartment reasons. They turned